There was a woman who, wanting some private quality time with her man, suggested that he buy a small apartment just for the two of them. That way, she wouldn't just have the freedom to come and go as she pleased, but they'd also save a fortune on hotel fees. The man stayed silent. He desperately wanted to agree with her, but unfortunately, his wallet wouldn't allow it. Just yesterday, Jin-yeon had discovered a hairpin at home that didn't belong to her. From her daughter, she learned it belonged to the young tutor, Seung. Not wanting to let her imagination run wild, Jin-yeon thought about asking her husband, but the words got stuck in her throat and she swallowed them back down. Back at the university, her husband was feeling incredibly frustrated. He knew that if things with Soo-young continued like this, everything would blow up sooner or later. If they actually had a private place of their own, it would avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. But looking at the pathetic balance in his bank account, he felt completely helpless. Despite being a university professor, his salary wasn't high. Where on earth was he supposed to get that kind of cash? Suddenly, he remembered his easygoing father-in-law, and a plan started to form. He called Jin-yeon to ask about the money her father had promised to provide for networking and building connections, specifically when he could get his hands on it. However, the father-in-law had just bought him a new car and a piano for his granddaughter. Even if the man were sitting on a mountain of gold and silver, there was no way he could cough up that much cash all at once. But Jin-yeon, who wasn't one to have a strong opinion of her own, couldn't withstand her husband's constant begging. She eventually agreed to go talk to her father. That evening, they invited him out for dinner. The old man was incredibly generous, telling them that the money had already been transferred to his son-in-law's account, and if they needed help managing things in the future, just let him know. You have to feel bad for this father for a second. As a parent, he only did this because he wanted his daughter to have a slightly better life. He had no idea that his ungrateful son-in-law was actually using that money for something so shady. On the way back, Jin-yeon tried to give her father some cab fare, but he flat out refused. He insisted he wasn't short on money, so why would he take any from his daughter? Jin-yeon felt a wave of guilt. Her father was generous enough to buy a car for his son-in-law, yet she didn't even have a car of her own to drive. As soon as her car turned the corner, her father hurriedly got out of his taxi because he didn't even have enough money in his pocket to pay for the ride home. This poor man had struggled all alone to raise his daughter. After Jin-yeon got married, he even bought her a house in a high-end neighborhood. To support his son-in-law's career, he had handed over every penny he earned to Jin-yeon to handle the networking. Fortunately, his daughter was very capable. Just a few years later, by leveraging those connections, she helped her husband get promoted to a senior professor. Jin-yeon became the professor's wife in everyone's eyes. But what she didn't know was that her father had gone bankrupt a long time ago. Every single step they took and every penny they spent was actually funded by high-interest loan sharks. Meanwhile, as soon as the husband got the money from his father-in-law, he used work as an excuse to neglect his family and went shopping with Soo-young. This scene was accidentally caught by the neighbor's daughter, Jae-young-soon. When the girl got home, she told the whole story to her mother. Even though the two women lived across from each other and were high school classmates, back in the day, neither would back down to the other. They even got into a physical fight once, which led to their relationship being cold ever since. Because of this, Jae-young-soon thought about using this information to humiliate Jin-yeon. Hearing from her old rival that her husband was sponsoring Soo-young, Jin-yeon assumed Jae-young-soon was just jealous of her happy marriage and was making things up. In a fit of rage, Jin-yeon kicked Jae-young-soon out. But looking at that hairpin she found a few days ago, her mood suddenly turned sour. That night, she confronted her husband about someone seeing him shopping with another woman. The husband denied it instantly, claiming he had been at the university all day and was so busy he didn't even have time to eat. How could he possibly be anywhere else? He even told her that a wife like Jin-yeon is one in a million, so how could he ever be unfaithful? His sweet words easily swayed Jin-yeon, who didn't have a manipulative bone in her body. But right at that moment, Il-hyun's phone rang. He explained that the dean was looking for him for an urgent meeting, and he had to head out immediately. Jin-yeon started to get suspicious. What could be so important that it required a meeting in the middle of the night? She was in such a rush that she even put on the wrong shoes as she followed Il-hyun all the way to a bar. Seeing her husband sitting there alone, she thought she had simply been overthinking. But just as she turned her back to leave, she witnessed the one scene she never wanted to believe was true. She finally caught him. She found her husband with another woman, and things were getting, let's just say, a little too touchy-feely. In a blind rage, Jin-yeon stormed over to confront them, demanding to know who this woman was and exactly what was going on between them. Terrified that his wife would cause a massive scene in public, Il-hyun dragged her back home. Once they were inside, he dared to act like nothing happened, casually pouring Jin-yeon a glass of water. Seeing that his wife wasn't falling for his nice guy act, Il-hyun flipped the script and started raising his voice. He actually had the nerve to ask her, "What did I even do wrong?" According to him, the girl was just a student who was in a bad mood and got too drunk. As her teacher, he claimed he was only there to comfort her, but Jin-yeon was making it disgusting. He said the only reason he lied about meeting the dean was that he knew she would overthink things. He even played the victim card, asking how they could live together if she didn't have a single ounce of trust in him. Once he felt like his performance was convincing enough, he shifted gears. He grabbed Jin-yeon's hand and apologized, saying he shouldn't have lied because that's what caused the fight. But he swore to high heaven that he did absolutely nothing wrong. He reminded her that as a university professor, he has to be a role model. Watching her husband make these grand vows, Jin-yeon felt a deep sense of resentment, but she found herself unable to talk back. The next day, the husband continued his shameless act, insisting nothing was going on with Soo-young. But the second he turned his back, he was right back to meeting Soo-young in secret. Meanwhile, Soo-young had the guts to show up at the house for the daughter's tutoring session, acting like everything was normal while trying to fish for info on whether the parents were fighting. That's when Jin-yeon walked in. She couldn't believe this woman actually dared to show her face here. Jin-yeon thought to herself, "Fine, if you're here, we're having this talk." As they sat down, Jin-yeon pulled out the hairpin, the one she had been holding onto for days. But a question like that wasn't going to trip up someone like Soo-young. She calmly explained that it must have fallen out while she was helping Il-hyun with some work. That kind of excuse might work on a 3-year-old, but there was no way it was going to fly with Jin-yeon. She gave Soo-young a stern warning. She would turn a blind eye this one time, but Soo-young was never to see her husband again. If she did, Jin-yeon promised to make her life a living hell. But Soo-young is a master manipulator. She wasn't just going to sit there and take it. She immediately ran to Il-hyun, adding some spice to the story of her conversation with Jin-yeon. She played the martyr, telling him that because she loved him so much and didn't want him to be in a difficult position, she would be the one to leave. Of course, this move worked perfectly on Il-hyun. There was no way he was letting a woman like her go. He immediately took the money he had swindled from his father-in-law and used it to rent a private room where he and Soo-young could be together. Back at home, Jin-yeon sat alone, staring at her wedding photo with nothing but infinite bitterness in her eyes. She kept replaying Soo-young's words in her head until her daughter walked in, cutting her train of thought. She desperately hoped she was just overthinking everything. The next day, her husband brought up the idea of firing Soo-young. He accused Jin-yeon of making a fuss over nothing, repeating that they were strictly teacher and student. He complained that her jealousy was now affecting their daughter's education. Then, without even consulting her, he declared that Soo-young would continue tutoring. He claimed he wouldn't let his wife falsely accuse him like that. It turns out, Il-hyun's words were worth absolutely nothing. Those sweet promises were forgotten as soon as they were spoken. It wasn't long before he was out shopping for furniture with Soo-young. And as fate would have it, Jin-yeon saw the whole thing. Seeing the two of them laughing and playing around like newlyweds felt like a knife to her heart. After they left, she went up to the salesperson. She lied and said her husband was buying things for his sister, and she was worried they got the address wrong, so she needed to double-check it. Once she got the information she needed, she stumbled back to her car, her hands shaking as she scribbled the address in her notebook. Right then, Il-hyun called. He told her he was meeting with some other teachers and would be home late. He claimed the school was so busy and he had a mountain of work to finish before hanging up. Watching her husband's back as he lied to her face, Jin-yeon felt like her heart had been hollowed out. The more she thought about it, the more she couldn't accept it. This was all his fault, so why was she the one suffering? She walked over to where his car was parked, grabbed a baseball bat she found nearby, and, fueled by every bit of hatred she had for Il-hyun, she smashed the car window with everything she had. Not wanting to go home, Jin-yeon headed to a friend's shop to vent. There, she ran into Jang-soon, her old rival, who was getting her hair done. Having previously seen Jang-soon's husband flirting with the staff, Jin-yeon realized that this crazy woman wasn't so annoying after all. She was just like her, a woman who had been deeply hurt, living in the dark while her world crumbled around her. But of course, Jang-soon couldn't help herself. She had to add fuel to the fire by bringing up other people's business. One thing led to another, and before they knew it, the argument turned into a full-blown physical brawl. Jin-yeon was already in a terrible headspace with no way to vent her anger, so she fought with a strength she hadn't used in decades. But it turned out her opponent was no pushover either. The two women were like wild horses, locked in a fierce battle. No matter how much people tried to intervene, it was useless. By the end of it, they hadn't just trashed her friend's shop, they had even managed to injure another customer. Unsurprisingly, both of them ended up injured and were hauled off to the police station. Luckily, Jang-soon's husband arrived just in time. Having money really does make a difference. He didn't just step up and pay for all the damages, but even the police had to show him some respect. The whole circus finally came to a quiet end. Jin-yeon had hoped her husband would be like the others and stand up for her, but the bigger the hope, the harder the fall. Back at home, looking at her fake, two-faced husband, Jin-yeon felt like she was going to throw up. She couldn't stand to face this man for a single second longer. She went to the park alone to clear her head, and wouldn't you know it, she ran into Jang-soon again. You'd think they'd start swinging again, but these two women, both suffering from the same circumstances, no longer had the fighting spirit they had earlier. In that moment, they just wanted to let out all the bottled up emotions. It makes you wonder, in an unhappy marriage, Why is it always the woman who ends up losing the most? The next day, determined to confirm her suspicions, Jin-yeon took the address she got from the mall and went to the apartment. But no matter how hard she knocked, nobody answered. She was drowning in misery. After calming herself down, she went to the property management office. She made up a story about wanting to move into the area with her sister and asked to see the unit at that address. The staff member told her she must have made a mistake. The apartment was rented to a married couple, and when they signed the lease, they never mentioned anyone else living there. Jin-yeon stood there dazed. Before she could even process it, the staff revealed the name on the lease. When she heard Il-hyun, she still didn't want to believe it. Was all the kindness her husband showed her just a total lie? On her way back, she couldn't stop replaying the manager's words. She was so distracted that she nearly got into an accident. Just as she got home, she received a call from the police and rushed to the station. They told her that her father was being sued for fraud because of unpaid debts. They advised her to settle with the creditors privately, or else her father would face serious prison time. Seeing how worried his daughter was, her father was consumed by guilt. He kept apologizing, saying he had humiliated her. Jin-yeon was in shock. She asked him if what the police said was true. When did he go bankrupt? Why was she kept in the dark? Was every time he acted generous and spent money just a facade? Her only answer was her father's silence. When she followed him back to his place, the sight broke her. The apartment was tiny, empty, and covered in trash. There was a mountain of instant noodle cups piled up in the sink. Jin-yeon couldn't hold it back anymore. She started packing his clothes, telling him he was coming home with her, but he refused. Seeing his daughter break down in tears, the old man finally gave in. Right after she got him settled at her house, the debt collectors called again. They demanded she pay off the debt on schedule, or they'd make sure her father rotted in jail. Just as she hung up, her husband walked in. When he realized his father-in-law was there to stay for a few days, the smile instantly vanished from his face. He interrogated Jin-yeon, asking why her father had shown up without warning and if he planned to move in permanently. Looking at the ungrateful man in front of her, Jin-yeon snapped. She reminded him that her father was the one who bought this house for them when they first got married. Back then, Il-hyun had sworn her father could stay as long as he wanted. Now, just a few years later, he had conveniently forgotten those words. She told him to look in the mirror and ask himself, who has more right to be in this house than her father? The two of them fought bitterly until they finally stormed off in opposite directions. Feeling a deep sense of guilt, Jin-yeon went to her father's side and gently tucked him in. She looked at him as he slept. When did he become so old and frail? When did she start neglecting the person who loved her the most? Jin-yeon truly couldn't swallow this resentment any longer. The next day, she went to find Il-hyun to confront him. But before she could even get a word out about his behavior, Il-hyun beat her to the punch, turning the tables and lashing out at her first. He actually had the nerve to play the man of the house card, lecturing Jin-yeon for bringing her father home without his permission. Looking at the sheer audacity of the man standing before her, Jin-yeon felt her heart turn to ice. She threw the truth right back in his face. When they first got married, Il-hyun was a nobody. He had absolutely nothing to his name, just his books and an empty bank account. Everything he has today, every bit of his success, was built on her father's support. And now that he's had a little taste of fame, he's conveniently forgotten the man who paved the way for him. For a moment, Il-hyun was speechless. Jin-yeon didn't stop there. With a voice full of resentment, she told him, "You're using my father's money to keep a little canary in a gilded cage. But her wings are getting strong, and sooner or later, she's going to fly away. If you don't believe me, just wait and see." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing there fuming. Once he was out of the house, panic started to set in. He couldn't figure out where he had messed up. How did his wife find out about his affair with Soo-young? After overthinking every detail, he convinced himself that Jin-yeon must have been investigating him. Then, a bigger fear hit him. If his father-in-law found out, the old man would hate him. And then where would he find another easy target to squeeze for money? As much as it pained him to let her go, Il-hyun made a cold, calculated decision. The next day, since they had finally secured their private love nest, Soo-young prepared a massive, celebratory lunch. Looking at her, Il-hyun hesitated several times, but for the sake of his status and reputation, he finally bit the bullet. When Soo-young heard him say he wanted to cut ties, she completely lost it. This life was something she had worked incredibly hard to claw her way into. There was no way she was letting it go that easily. She started pouring out the sweet talk, manipulating Il-hyun and stroking his ego until his resolve completely melted. Just like that, the breakup was off the table. And the betrayal didn't just come from her husband. Even her daughter, usually so sweet and well-behaved, was now throwing a tantrum because Jin-yeon wanted to fire Soo-young. The little girl actually told Jin-yeon she wasn't a good mother and said she wanted a new one. She claimed that thanks to Soo-young, her grades were up and she was actually getting her homework done. More than that, she felt like Soo-young was the only one who truly understood her. In her eyes, her parents were just overbearing. Despite her daughter's begging, Jin-yeon stood her ground. This was the one thing she refused to compromise on. But the girl was just a child. She had no idea about the toxic mess behind the scenes. She ran to her room in a fit of tears, ignoring her mother's calls, leaving Jin-yeon sobbing uncontrollably. Later that night, Jin-yeon finally managed to calm her daughter down, but the peace was shattered when two aggressive thugs burst into the house. Jin-yeon's motherly instincts kicked in, and she immediately moved to protect her terrified child. Realizing these men meant trouble, the daughter used her quick wits, pretended she was just going to a friend's house, and managed to sneak out. She sprinted to the beauty salon to find Young-mi, her mom's best friend. There are two strange men in the house. My mom is in danger. She dragged her Annie back home while rounding up the security guards on the way. Inside, the thugs were casually trashing the place. It didn't take long for the house to become a total disaster zone. The noise was so loud that it woke up Jae-young-soon, the neighbor. Despite their history and the bad blood between them, Jae-young-soon couldn't just stand by. She ran out just as the little girl arrived with help. The whole group rushed inside. Seeing the house in ruins and facing down two violent criminals, they hesitated for a second before trying to talk sense into them. Predictably, they were no match for the thugs. The criminals were getting annoyed, mockingly asking what these ugly women were even trying to do. Amidst the chaos, Jin-yeon finally snapped. She let out a piercing scream, telling them to get the hell out. Luckily, the thugs had a tiny shred of a moral code left. Jin-yeon sent everyone away. Her best friend Young-mi stayed behind, wanting to know the full story, but Jin-yeon was in a trance. Her only goal now was to clean up every trace of the nightmare before her father came home. She stayed silent when her best friend started asking questions. But remember, Jin-yeon was a girl who had been shielded by her father her entire life. How was she supposed to handle a nightmare like this? Finally, she couldn't hold it back anymore and just broke down sobbing. Her father had worked himself to the bone his whole life for her, and now that he was old, she was supposed to be the one protecting him. Instead, everything was falling apart. After her friend kept digging, Jin-yeon finally spilled the truth. Learning that Jin-yeon's father wasn't just bankrupt, but drowning in debt, Young-mi felt terrible for her. She tried to comfort Jin-yeon, telling her not to worry too much. After all, she still had her husband. For years, her father had basically handed that man his career on a silver platter. So surely he wouldn't turn his back on them now, right? But what Young-mi didn't know was that the mountain of debt the father was carrying was all because of that very same man. That evening, after Jin-yeon finally calmed down, she stared at their shattered family photo. She was trying to figure out how to even bring this up to her husband. Right then, she got a text from Il-hyun. He claimed a colleague's father had passed away suddenly, and he had to attend the funeral. Apparently, he'd be staying there all night. Jin-yeon was furious, but all she could do was take out her anger on her phone. She had no idea that her husband's all-nighter was actually spent in the arms of another woman. The next morning, Il-hyun strolled back in, dressed to the nines, claiming he got the news so abruptly he didn't have time to call. Then, he actually had the nerve to complain about how many funerals there have been lately. Jin-yeon wasn't buying a single word. She looked him in the eye and asked, "How many more people are you planning to kill off?" That threw Il-hyun off for a second. Even though he'd been playing house all night, he shamelessly doubled down, insisting he stayed up with the grieving family and was dead tired. Jin-yeon just stared at him. Il-hyun made the classic "I'm going to take a shower" excuse and bolted. Just then, his phone rang. Jin-yeon hesitated for a second, then picked it up. The caller ID said Jang, but as soon as she said one word, the person on the other end hung up. It felt wrong. Little did she know, on the other end of that line, Soo-young was panicking. Meanwhile, her father knew his son-in-law hadn't come home. He was convinced they were fighting because of him. Back in the bedroom, she looked at her husband, who was pretending to be asleep, and got straight to the point. Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, Il-hyun still tried to lie his way out. Looking at this stubborn, pathetic man, Jin-yeon asked one final question. Was that funeral yesterday actually real? Il-hyun insisted it was. Jin-yeon didn't even bother looking at the liar anymore. She just turned and walked away, feeling unsteady on her feet. Terrified, Il-hyun could only stand there slapping himself in the face. The second she stepped out of the room, she got a call from her friends asking why she missed the get-together yesterday. They mentioned that even Jang, the busy one, had brought his whole family. Jin-yeon froze. The only Jang she knew among her husband's colleagues was that man. The funeral, the all-nighter, it was all a disgusting lie. Before she could even recover from the shock, her daughter dropped another bombshell. She mentioned that she had run into Soo-young downstairs yesterday, and shortly after, her dad told her to go home first because he had something to discuss with Soo-young. With those words from her daughter, every last bit of hope in Jin-yeon's heart finally shattered. She was beyond sad. She was devastated. After gathering herself, she told her husband she knew exactly what he'd been up to. Then, she asked him just how many colleagues he had, and how many more people he was going to kill off to keep his lies going. Il-hyun was paralyzed. He had no idea his clueless wife actually knew everything. Panicking, he finally made a choice. With zero hesitation in his eyes, he sent a cold text to Soo-young, breaking things off. But Soo-young was totally obsessed with him. How could she let go so easily? She immediately tracked him down to confront him, demanding to know why he was suddenly dumping her. To keep Soo-young under his thumb, Il-hyun pulled a total power move. He called Jin-yeon right in front of the mistress. He told his wife that he'd keep his distance from Soo-young from now on and insisted he had never forgotten his family. He clearly saw himself as a man destined for greatness. There was no way he'd let a woman ruin his bright future. What he didn't realize was that his wife was already drowning in stress. She was so worried about her father's massive debt and so terrified it might affect Il-hyun's career that she had been carrying the entire burden on her own shoulders. But because the debt had been ignored for too long, the collectors finally tracked Il-hyun down. From them, Il-hyun learned the ugly truth. His father-in-law was broke, drowning in debt, and living like a fugitive. The more Il-hyun thought about it, the angrier he got. He stormed home and interrogated Jin-yeon, demanding to know why she hid the bankruptcy and why she dared to sign a settlement without his permission. This selfish man blamed everyone but himself. He never once looked in the mirror. Back when the father-in-law first moved in, Il-hyun was too busy playing cards with his students to notice anything. Usually, he'd come home late or not at all, so Jin-yeon never even had a chance to talk to him. Now that the secret was out, he didn't offer his wife a single word of comfort. All he cared about was whether the old man was officially penniless, if there was any more money coming his way, or if there was any inheritance left to grab. Jin-yeon told him straight, her father has nothing. Now, she'd have to not only care for him, but also pay back the money he owed. Money that, let's be honest, they had both spent. Il-hyun was stunned. His cash cow was gone, and now she wanted him to be the one to pay for it? He lashed out, claiming he never spent a dime of the father's money and never once asked for a thing. He argued that the house and the car were voluntary gifts, so why should he have to pay back the debt? He threw the responsibility right back at her, saying he wasn't even a blood relative, so it wasn't his problem. Then, he hungrily warned Jin-yeon, if she dared to touch a single cent of his assets, he wouldn't let it slide. With that, he walked out, completely ignoring the feelings of the man who had supported him for years. Convinced he was the real victim here, Il-hyun went to a bar to drown his sorrows. He had worked so hard to climb to the top. Was his reputation really going to vanish because of one old man? Feeling sorry for himself, he got wasted and headed to Soo-young's place for comfort. The mistress, being the master manipulator she is, saw him passed out and immediately saw an opportunity to cause chaos. Back at home, Jin-yeon received a gloating text from Soo-young. Seeing her husband sleeping soundly in another woman's bed, Jin-yeon's blood boiled. She rushed to the apartment, burst in, and started shaking Il-hyun violently. The shock of it probably sobered him up. He woke up in a daze, saw Jin-yeon standing over him, and scrambled up in a panic. Soo-young decided this was the perfect moment to blow everything wide open. She stepped between them, scolding Jin-yeon for waking the exhausted professor. She told Jin-yeon that since he's so busy with work, a wife should just look the other way. Jin-yeon didn't say a word. She just delivered a massive slap to Soo-young's face and started trashing the place. Il-hyun couldn't understand how his wife found him, but Soo-young proudly admitted she was the one who told her. "You can't hide a fire with paper forever," she said. "It's better to just be honest." Looking at the smug mistress, Jin-yeon wanted to tear her apart, but Il-hyun held her back. He dared to remind her that she was the professor's wife and that making a scene at someone else's house at midnight was embarrassing. He tried to brush it off, saying his being there was just a drunken mistake. So she ran out into the night, sobbing. Scared that she would go and ruin his reputation, Il-hyun chased after her. But he didn't have a single ounce of regret. Facing her criticism, he actually turned it around and called her a liar for hiding the bankruptcy first. He asked what right a lying wife had to judge a husband who provides for the house. He told her to stop thinking he only succeeded because of her father. He claimed he would have been just as successful without him. He made it crystal clear. Whoever made the mess should clean it up, and he wasn't paying a single penny for her father. Even after getting slapped, Il-hyun stood there with his head held high, full of himself. He gave her one last warning. If she wanted to stay the professor's wife, she better watch what she says and does. Then, he walked away, leaving his broken, devastated wife behind. Jin-yeon couldn't believe that the man she had shared a bed with for over 10 years could be this cruel and ungrateful. The drama reached a whole new level the next day when Jin-yeon got a call from Soo-young. The mistress dared to claim that the professor had left his wallet at her place in a hurry, and since she was worried it might interfere with his classes, she asked Jin-yeon when she'd like to come pick it up. Faced with such a blatant provocation, Jin-yeon forced herself to swallow her pride, all for the sake of her daughter. Meanwhile, Il-hyun was still in total denial about his father-in-law going bankrupt. He kept double-checking the facts, unable to wrap his head around how a man worth tens of billions could suddenly be penniless. But the news remained the same. The money was gone. It finally hit him that his golden ticket had officially expired. On the way home, his frustration boiled over. Just the thought of facing Jin-yeon's nagging and another endless fight was too much, so he instinctively turned his car around and headed straight to Soo-young's. He went there looking for a place to relax, but instead, Soo-young dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant. Il-hyun was paralyzed. This was definitely not part of his plan. His career was finally stable, and if the public found out about this mess, it would destroy everything. He tried to calm her down, telling her that since she hadn't graduated yet, she couldn't support a baby, and they couldn't provide a real family. He basically told her they both needed time to think before making any moves. Then he turned his back and bolted out of there. When Jin-yeon found out about the pregnancy, a massive fight broke out. This time, Il-hyun took it way too far and delivered a brutal slap to Jin-yeon's face. But true to his manipulative nature, he immediately flipped the script and started playing the victim. Even though he had another woman, he was still a prestigious professor and was terrified his wife would blow the lid off the secret and make him lose everything. But Jin-yeon was done. She wasn't listening to his fake apologies anymore. He was the one who destroyed their lives. Why was she the one suffering? Jin-yeon decided it was time to fight back. The next day, she went to the secret apartment Il-hyun had rented, canceled the lease without hesitation, and took back the deposit money. Naturally, when Soo-young found herself locked out, she ran straight to Il-hyun to play the victim. Il-hyun, completely under her spell, rushed home to confront his wife. He interrogated Jin-yeon, asking how she could be so heartless. He actually defended the mistress, asking where a student with no income was supposed to go. He complained that he had a plan to handle it, and she had ruined everything. Jin-yeon wasn't about to play his games. She told him that doing bad things and then acting like the victim wasn't going to work for her. But Il-hyun didn't care. He slapped her again and demanded the deposit money she'd just gotten back. He claimed the debt collectors had come again and that he needed that money to pay off her father's debt. Then, he started a long-winded manipulation tactic. He told her Soo-young was only early in her pregnancy and still under his control. He claimed they could still save the situation if she just gave him the money to pay the mistress to go away. Unbelievably, Jin-yeon was still too naive. Those few words from Il-hyun were enough to cloud her judgment, and she obediently handed over the very last of their household savings. But as soon as her back was turned, Il-hyun showed his true colors. He ransacked the house until he finally found what he was really after, the deed to their property. It's true what they say, the enemy inside the house is the most dangerous, especially when he's a silver-tongued fox like Il-hyun. He immediately met up with Soo-young, handed her all the cash he had just swindled from his wife, and told her he actually wanted her to keep the baby. He even played the part of the doting husband, taking her to an OB/GYN checkup. Meanwhile, the poor, foolish Jin-yeon only realized she'd been played when the debt collectors called her. She found out Il-hyun had taken the money but hadn't paid a single cent of the debt. When she went to check, she realized the house deed was gone, and Il-hyun had turned off his phone. At that moment, a cold realization hit her. Her husband was up to something truly sinister. She didn't know that Il-hyun was currently scrambling to find a way to keep both the stolen money and the house for himself. When she finally managed to get a hold of him, he flat out denied taking the deed. Il-hyun knew it was only a matter of time before his wife figured it all out, so he decided to strike first. After thinking it over, he decided to transfer the ownership of the house into Soo-young's name. He sent her back to the house to get her personal seal to finalize the paperwork. But he didn't count on one thing. As Soo-young was leaving the house, she came face to face with Jin-yeon. At this moment, Jin-yeon finally realized that the person stabbing her in the back had been right there all along. The other woman was actually the younger sister of her high school rival. No wonder Jang-soon had been acting all buddy-buddy lately. She knew everything and was just sitting back, watching Jin-yeon play the fool. Jang-soon tried to explain herself, claiming she had warned Jin-yeon to keep a tight leash on her husband. She argued that even though Soo-young was her sister, the girl was an adult, and Jang-soon felt powerless to stop her. Besides, she coldly reminded Jin-yeon that it takes two to tango. Leaving Jin-yeon standing there in total shock, Jang-soon turned and walked away. When Jang-soon got home and saw her sister's shameless attitude, she lost it and slapped her right across the face. Soo-young actually had the nerve to ask why she was being treated that way. This only made Jang-soon angrier. She was ready to swing again and teach her sister the lesson that Jin-yeon couldn't. Seeing their mother take Jang-soon's side, Soo-young took the opportunity to bolt. Talk about a disaster waiting to happen. She was pregnant and running in high heels. It's a miracle she didn't trip and kill herself right then and there. Despite the pain, Soo-young ran for her life and finally escaped her sister's pursuit. After she and Il-hyun successfully finalized the fraudulent transfer of the house deed, they were about to leave when Soo-young started feeling unwell. She brushed it off, thinking there were more important things to do. She and Il-hyun took the money they had swindled from Jin-yeon and went to rent a brand new place. But their actions were something even the heavens couldn't forgive. While they were busy fantasizing about their perfect future together, karma came knocking. Soo-young collapsed in agonizing pain, and Il-hyun rushed her to the hospital. In the end, it was as if the baby hated this family so much that it chose to leave. When Il-hyun heard the news that the baby was lost, you could practically see the sigh of relief on his face. But Soo-young, after losing the child, decided to pin all the blame on Jin-yeon. As soon as she got back to their new place, she started her manipulation act. She told Il-hyun that if he had just let Jin-yeon go, she wouldn't have had to live like a fugitive every day or beg Jin-yeon for mercy until she was beaten. She told these lies without even blinking. And Il-hyun, who's supposed to be an intellectual, fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He rushed back to the house, ignored Jin-yeon, who was busy working, and started packing his bags. When Jin-yeon confronted him, he lashed out at her. He called his respectable professor's wife a vile woman for supposedly beating Soo-young so badly that she miscarried. Jin-yeon stared at the man she once loved. It was disgusting to her that he referred to a woman like Soo-young as a poor little girl. It was clear they were the same kind of trash, totally shameless. She knew that no matter how she explained it, he wouldn't believe her. This time, Jin-yeon finally fought back. She asked him how he, the person in the wrong, dared to be so aggressive. She told him that despite his high education and gentlemanly exterior, he was nothing but scum who didn't deserve to be called an educator. She shouted that she had endured all of this strictly for her father, for her daughter, and for her own pathetic sense of pride. She had swallowed her misery over and over again, only to be framed for an assault she didn't commit. Jin-yeon got more and more emotional, thinking about all the bitterness she had endured lately, and she finally broke down in tears. But Il-hyun remained completely cold. He told her he was moving out for a while so they could both cool down. In a moment of desperation, Jin-yeon actually yielded again. She told him that if he just came back, she would forget everything that happened. It was so painful to watch, this foolish woman trying to hold on to a man whose heart was already long gone. She begged him to put himself in her shoes and to think about their daughter and her father. Il-hyun walked out with total determination, leaving Jin-yeon to cry all alone. The next day, feeling consumed by guilt for hiding the truth for so long, Jae-young-soon finally showed up at the house to apologize to Jin-yeon. Through their conversation, Jae-young-soon finally learned the sickening truth. Il-hyun had pinned the entire blame for the miscarriage on Jin-yeon and had even moved out of the house. Jae-young-soon felt like she had to take matters into her own hands. Since she couldn't get a hold of her sister, she marched straight to the university to find Il-hyun. But even then, Il-hyun kept up his noble professor act. He looked her right in the eye and asked, "Even if I am Soo-young's instructor, how am I supposed to know where she is at all times?" Jae-young-soon ripped into him with a barrage of insults before storming off, leaving Il-hyun so enraged that he started trashing his own office. And of course, in his twisted mind, it was all his wife's fault. He assumed Jin-yeon had been running her mouth, causing people to come and harass him at work. Because Il-hyun hadn't paid back a single dime, the debt collectors came for Jin-yeon again. This time, they weren't playing around. They told her that if the money wasn't paid within a week, they would sue her father and make sure he rotted in jail. Desperate, she tried to call Il-hyun, but his phone was unreachable. She had no idea that her distinguished husband was busy giving a smooth-talking interview on a TV show. With his fake, charming persona, he was busy winning over a whole new audience of female viewers. After the show, Jin-yeon cornered him. She demanded to know what happened to the last of their savings, the money he had promised to use for the debt. Il-hyun just stood there with a smug look on his face. He actually asked her, "If I didn't say that, would you have even given me the money?" He made it clear he felt zero responsibility for a man he wasn't even blood related to. Then, he dropped the ultimate bombshell. He claimed their entire marriage had been nothing but a business transaction from the very beginning. He said she was pregnant and needed someone to cover it up, while he was dirt poor and needed a ladder to climb. According to him, they were just using each other. These words felt like a dagger to Jin-yeon's heart. She wanted to face the reality of her failing marriage, but she still had her father's debt to worry about. She decided to mortgage the house to pay it off, but that's when she got the shock of a lifetime. The legal owner of the house had already been changed to Soo-young. Jin-yeon tracked down her husband and confronted him about his sheer audacity. How could he secretly transfer the house her father bought to another woman? Il-hyun just yelled back, claiming he was only doing it to protect his assets. Without a single care for his collapsing wife, the heartless man just turned his back and walked away. Left with no other choice, Jin-yeon sought out Soo-young. Backed by Il-hyun's silent approval, the mistress was now acting incredibly arrogant. She intentionally led Jin-yeon into Il-hyun's office, acting like she owned the place. She bragged that she was now the official owner of the house. Then, she threw out a disgusting challenge. She told Jin-yeon that if she got down on her knees and begged, she might consider giving the house back. Jin-yeon finally snapped and attacked her, but Soo-young wouldn't back down. Feeling a hatred for Il-hyun that went down to her very bones, Jin-yeon could only collapse and cry in despair. That evening, she got another call from Il-hyun. Following the mistress's manipulation, he warned Jin-yeon to stop harassing Soo-young. He told her this was between the two of them and to stop dragging an innocent girl into it. Pushed to her absolute limit, Jin-yeon finally gathered the courage to walk into a lawyer's office. But when she saw couples in the lobby screaming and fighting over their divorces, she lost her nerve. She didn't want the world to see her as that pathetic. Meanwhile, because the debt collectors were calling Il-hyun every day, Soo-young advised him to cut ties completely so he wouldn't have to deal with unrelated business. She even generously told him that if he couldn't let go of his daughter, she'd be more than happy to have the girl live with them. Desperate to secure her spot as the professor's wife, Soo-young began targeting the child, Hana. When Hana saw her favorite teacher, she was thrilled. Being just an innocent child, she had no guard up and quickly told Soo-young all about how her parents were fighting. Soo-young then took it a step further and asked the girl who she'd want to live with if her parents got a divorce. Hana felt a chill down her spine. She sensed something was wrong, made an excuse to go to the bathroom, and ran for it. She sprinted all the way home, accidentally bumping into a man and falling to the ground. That's when Soo-young caught up to her. Hana insisted she had to go home because her mom would be worried, but Soo-young lured her with ice cream, promising she'd call her mother. Jin-yeon soon got that call. Soo-young gloated over the phone, saying Hana was with her and would be home after they finished eating. But by the time Jin-yeon rushed to the spot, her daughter was already gone. Jin-yeon tried to walk away, but Soo-young chased her down, saying that since she was already there, they needed to settle things once and for all. Jin-yeon gave Soo-young a final, icy warning. If she ever dared to seek out her daughter again without permission, there would be hell to pay. When she finally got home, things only got worse. Little Hana was in tears, asking the one question no parent wants to hear. Are you guys getting a divorce? Why can't you just be together? Do you even love me anymore? Jin-yeon was paralyzed. She had no idea how to explain this mess to a child. It's a tragedy that adult mistakes always end up breaking the hearts of the innocent. All she could do was pull her daughter close and sob with her. Meanwhile, across town, Il-hyun was living his best life, enjoying a romantic candlelight dinner with Soo-young. The next day, Hana finally managed to get a hold of her dad. She asked him why he wouldn't come home, why he wasn't answering her texts, and why he hadn't come to visit. Even though Il-hyun knew he wasn't her biological father, he had raised her since she was a baby, and he did have a soft spot for her. He couldn't say no to her, so he agreed to a meeting. He had no idea that at that very moment, Soo-young was at her sister Jang-soon's house visiting their mother. Jin-yeon happened to be coming home from the market at the same time, and all these people, who were tangled in a web of lies, ended up face to face. Clueless as ever, Soo-young's mother tried to introduce her successful daughter to Jin-yeon. Jin-yeon looked at the shameless couple and felt like she could skin them alive. But because Jang-soon had asked her for a favor, Jin-yeon decided to hide the truth for now. She played along and lied, saying she and Soo-young only knew each other because she was Hana's tutor and went to the same school as her husband. The awkward encounter ended with a whimper, thanks to Jin-yeon's silence. Il-hyun finally made a rare appearance at home. To make her daughter happy, Jin-yeon had painstakingly prepared a massive feast. But Il-hyun didn't come home to be a family man. He came home with an agenda. He told her to stop playing games and to quit sending people to harass him and Soo-young. Jin-yeon was done talking. The man her father had poured his life into supporting was now a stranger who only knew how to spit out venomous lies. During the heated argument, Il-hyun dropped a massive bombshell. He wasn't giving up custody, he wasn't giving up the house, and he wasn't leaving her a single penny. Jin-yeon couldn't believe a human being could be this shameless. No matter how she screamed or fought, Il-hyun just left her with more cruel words and walked out, leaving her to suffer in the ruins of their home. To make matters worse, even her daughter turned against her. Hana blamed her mom, saying it was Jin-yeon's fault for always being angry and driving her dad away. After a long night of soul-searching, Jin-yeon decided to follow her daughter's advice and go to the hospital for a checkup. Or maybe she just needed an excuse to find some comfort. At the same time, Il-hyun and Soo-young were out having the time of their lives shopping at a high-end mall. And as fate would have it, Jang-soon and Young-mi spotted them. Remembering everything Jin-yeon had been through, they were absolutely seeing red. They didn't even have to plan their attack. The cheating couple walked right into them. Jang-soon and Young-mi charged in, screaming insults. And it didn't take long for a total brawl to break out in the middle of the mall. As a crowd started to gather, Il-hyun realized his prestigious reputation was at stake, grabbed Soo-young, and ran for it. The two friends chased them all the way to the parking lot, but they were a second too late to catch them. The next day, Young-mi told Jin-yeon everything that happened. She gave her a harsh reality check. He transferred the house to someone else, you're buried in debt, and you could be kicked out any day. If you don't fight back and win back what's yours, how are you going to raise your child? She then told Jin-yeon that her sister was a lawyer and would be willing to help. Jin-yeon was still hesitating. She didn't want things to get too ugly for her daughter's sake. She tried calling Soo-young one last time, hoping to talk her into giving the house back. But Il-hyun intercepted the call and warned her to stay away from Soo-young, telling her to stop dragging innocent people into this. That heartlessness was the final straw. Jin-yeon finally gathered the courage to meet Eun-young, the lawyer's sister. But the news was devastating. Eun-young explained that the house was originally in Il-hyun's name, meaning the transfer was perfectly legal. All the money earned during the marriage was technically under his name, too. Every piece of evidence was stacked against Jin-yeon. The hope of getting her home back was fading fast. Broken and defeated, Jin-yeon could only walk away in total despair. Fate works in mysterious ways, doesn't it? Just when things couldn't get more complicated, Jin-yeon's ex-boyfriend, A man who had been missing for years suddenly reappears out of thin air. He actually tries to chase after her, but because he's a busy director, their timing is off and they miss each other by a hair. Meanwhile, our resident homewrecker, Soo-young, is getting desperate for that divorce to happen. Realizing she can't break Jin-yeon, she shifts her target to Jin-yeon's father. Her plan? Crush this old man to clear her path to becoming the professor's wife. Fate strikes again when Jin-yeon's father catches Il-hyun and Soo-young being lovey-dovey in public. Seeing his ungrateful son-in-law being so blatant about his cheating, the old man delivers a well-deserved, massive slap to his face. When he gets home, he can barely look at his daughter without his heart breaking. He finally understands why Il-hyun hasn't been coming home and realizes just how much pain Jin-yeon has been hiding just to protect him. The more the father thinks about it, the angrier he gets. The next day, he marches to the university to confront Il-hyun. He asks him point blank, "Have you really lost your mind? Are you really throwing your wife away for some other girl?" But Il-hyun has zero respect left. He tells his father-in-law to stay out of his business. He actually tells the man, "Don't think just because you helped me in the past that you can sit there and lecture me." The father is floored. He can't believe the man he handpicked for his daughter turned out to be such an ungrateful snake. He loses his cool and goes to slap Il-hyun again. But this time, Il-hyun catches his hand midair. Il-hyun starts screaming at the old man, demanding to know what right he has to hit him. He shoves the old man to the ground with such force that he ends up in the hospital. All day, Jin-yeon has a gut feeling that something is wrong. Then comes the call from the hospital. Her father is in critical condition. She rushes there to find him unconscious in a hospital bed. When she sees Il-hyun, she lets him have it, calling him a shameless pig. She tells him his wandering eye is the reason they are in this nightmare. But instead of apologizing, Il-hyun just doubles down. He brings up her painful secret again, asking why he's the bad guy when he's been raising another man's child for years. He's about to get physical with her when, out of nowhere, our secondary lead, Hyung-min, jumps in and shoves Il-hyun back. He calls Il-hyun out. "You're a man who's been on TV, and you're hitting a woman in public? Are you so desperate for fame that you've lost your mind?" Il-hyun shuts up instantly because his biggest fear is losing his precious reputation. Jin-yeon, however, doesn't want anyone else involved in her mess, especially an ex. She tells Hyung-min to leave. He's smart enough to know when to back off, so once he's sure Il-hyun won't strike again, he heads out. Il-hyun is left rattled, wondering who this guy is and immediately accusing Jin-yeon of having a man on the side. Jin-yeon doesn't even bother replying. The next day, the man who swore he'd never set foot in the house again suddenly shows up. Why? 2 hours earlier, Il-hyun got a call from a reporter saying they wanted to do an at-home interview for a big story. Despite the war between them, Il-hyun is so obsessed with his image that he doesn't want to miss a PR opportunity. He tries to strike a deal. "If you play the happy wife for the cameras, I'll give you the house back once the interview is over." He tells her to think long and hard because this is her only chance. That night, Jin-yeon wrestles with her conscience. She realizes she can't be like him. She can't be a professional liar for personal gain. She tells him no, but Il-hyun isn't taking no for an answer. He threatens her, saying that if she doesn't cooperate, he will tell the entire world that Hana isn't his daughter. But Jin-yeon is done being a victim. She looks him in the eye and tells him she won't just sit there and take it. If he dares to expose Hana, she will expose every single one of his disgusting secrets to the world. Il-hyun is so enraged that he stands up to hit her again, but luckily, Eun-young shows up just in time to stop him from laying a hand on her. The next day, Jin-yeon walked through her front door only to find Il-hyun already there, telling him flat out that she wasn't doing the interview. She wasn't going to become a professional liar just for the sake of his career. But then, Il-hyun did something pathetic. He threw away every last bit of his dignity and begged her. He pleaded with her to help him just one last time and swore on his life that once the interview was over, he would give the house back. And because Jin-yeon has a heart of gold, she eventually softened and agreed. Facing the cameras, she swallowed her pride and put on a fake smile, playing her part in his twisted little play. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until Soo-young showed up. Apparently, the mistress couldn't stand the idea of the happy couple being seen on TV together. Il-hyun was in a total panic. Was this woman really so clueless that she'd ruin his career in public? Soo-young, acting completely innocent, introduced herself to the reporters as the professor's star student and their daughter's tutor. Watching the two of them together, Jin-yeon felt like a complete stranger in her own home. It hit her like a ton of bricks. They were the real family now. Thinking back on every time Soo-young had provoked her and how cold Il-hyun had been, Jin-yeon finally had enough. Right then and there, she demanded a divorce. When Soo-young heard the news, she was over the moon. She was one step closer to officially being the professor's wife. But greed is a bottomless pit, and once Soo-young got what she wanted even more. When she found out Il-hyun planned to return the house to Jin-yeon, she immediately started plotting a way to keep it for herself. After years of marriage, the divorce was finally finalized. Soo-young was the only one celebrating. Jin-yeon couldn't stand to be near those two hypocrites for another second, so she turned and walked away. She tried to look strong on the outside, but inside, she was completely shattered. The stress finally broke her. Jin-yeon started having a mental breakdown, seeing Il-hyun and Soo-young in every stranger passing by on the street. At one point, she was so out of it that she even mistook her own daughter for her cheating ex-husband. Under the weight of this extreme psychological pressure, Jin-yeon fell dangerously ill. Her daughter, terrified and unable to reach Il-hyun, had no choice but to go out on her own to buy medicine for her mom. Luckily, she ran into Young-mi and Jaeyoung-soon. When they found Jin-yeon unconscious, they knew it was serious and called an ambulance immediately. Fortunately, after being rushed to the emergency room, Jin-yeon pulled through. Seeing her once strong best friend in such a pathetic state made Young-mi absolutely see red. After a few days of recovery and a lot of encouragement from her friends, Jin-yeon finally started to crawl out from the shadow of her broken marriage. With no income left, the woman who was once a top-tier student found herself working as a clerk at a convenience store. On her very first day, she ran into the last people on earth she wanted to see. Soo-young, of course, didn't miss the chance to humiliate her. While they were talking, Il-hyun walked in. He was visibly shocked to see Jin-yeon looking so down and out. He couldn't believe his proud wife was working a retail job. Jin-yeon kept it professional. She asked Il-hyun what the status of the house was and when she'd get the money he promised. But Soo-young, acting like she was possessed, jumped in and told Jin-yeon to talk to her about the house and to stop bothering the professor. She claimed the house was hers now and that no one else had a say in it. She even smugly told Jin-yeon that if the house didn't sell, she wouldn't be getting a single penny. Then, she triumphantly dragged Il-hyun out of the store. Because she was new to the job and couldn't cover the bills, Jin-yeon reached out to Il-hyun again, demanding he sell the house quickly. She just wanted a clean break. For once, Il-hyun showed a tiny shred of a conscience. He realized that Jin-yeon was struggling to take care of their child and her father, so he decided not to sell the house and told them they could continue living there for the time being. That was Il-hyun's plan, but Soo-young wasn't about to let that happen. When he told her his decision, she pretended to agree to his face, but secretly, she was terrified he still had feelings for Jin-yeon. She started working behind his back to sell the house as fast as possible. Later that day, while Jin-yeon was at work, she got a call from Soo-young. The mistress ordered her to get home within 30 minutes. Jin-yeon had to beg for time off and rush home. Soo-young was already there, acting like the lady of the house. Before long, the agent arrived with a client, and Soo-young walked them through every room, acting like she was the one who had lived there all along. The buyer was totally sold on the house and didn't even blink before signing the contract. But there was a catch. They needed Jin-yeon to move out in just 2 weeks so they could start renovations. Jin-yeon was in a total panic. She cornered Soo-young, explaining that 2 weeks wasn't nearly enough time to find a new place and move. Feeling completely helpless, Jin-yeon tracked down Il-hyun and demanded to know how he could be so heartless. She asked him if he had already forgotten the terms of their divorce agreement. How could he promise her one thing and then turn around and do the exact opposite? Il-hyun looked a bit rattled by the confrontation. Jin-yeon laid it all out for him. Soo-young had sold the house and was kicking them out in 2 weeks. Without her share of the money, she was broke. "Do you really want our daughter living on the streets like vagrants?" she asked. Il-hyun promised he'd handle it and told her to just give him a few more days. But of course, those few days turned into a week of silence and no money arrived. Jin-yeon called him again, fuming. She told him she had already found a new place and was ready to sign the contract, but she couldn't do anything without the cash. After he hung up, Il-hyun confronted Soo-young about the funds. But Soo-young had other plans. She argued that the divorce settlement Il-hyun agreed to was way too impulsive. She claimed she'd done some digging and discovered that nobody pays that much alimony. Her excuse? Jin-yeon hadn't worked a single day since they got married, and since it was his money that bought the house, why should she get half? She reminded him that they'd need that money for their own wedding and a new home, asking him where that cash would come from if he gave it all away. During the heat of the argument, Il-hyun let it slip that Hana wasn't even his biological daughter. As soon as Soo-young heard that, the gears started turning. She knew she could use this secret to her advantage. Still penniless and desperate, Jin-yeon went to collect the money in person, but instead of a check, she got a face full of insults from Soo-young. She thought she could use the law to get what she deserved, but her lawyer, Eun-young, delivered the bad news. If the other side was dead set on not paying, their only option was a long, grueling appeal process. There was no quick fix. With no other choice, Jin-yeon went to the university to find Il-hyun. She told him she had already signed for a new place and was in desperate need of the money they promised to transfer. But Il-hyun just gave her the cold shoulder. He claimed he didn't have the money yet and that the funds from the house sale hadn't cleared. He told her to just wait, mentioning he was about to land a big commercial deal, asking her if she really thought he'd stiff her once he was rich. Then, as it turns out, he was in a rush to meet with the DL group to discuss becoming their new brand ambassador. In a crazy twist of fate, the man in charge of the deal was Hyung-min Jin-yeon's first love. Since the company was obsessed with their spokesperson's wholesome image, Hyung-min didn't hold back. He asked Il-hyun point-blank about his marriage. Everyone saw him as the perfect family man, but Hyung-min pushed him, asking if his happy marriage was real or just a contract for the cameras. Il-hyun, being the total narcissist he is, wasn't about to let this lucrative deal slip away. Even though he was already divorced, he flat out lied to Hyung-min's face to protect his reputation and secure the bag. Later that day, the buyer showed up at the house again with some people. Since the renovations were going to be a massive job, they asked Jin-yeon if she could move out even earlier. Jin-yeon explained that she hadn't received her final payment yet and had no money for a new rental, so she couldn't leave. But the buyer looked at her in confusion. They told her they had actually paid the full balance a long time ago and didn't know what missing payment she was talking about. Jin-yeon was stunned. She realized she'd been lied to this entire time. The next day, she called for a meeting with Il-hyun to demand the truth. She wanted to know when he was finally going to keep his word. But Il-hyun's response was absolutely disgusting. He told her to go talk to Soo-young, saying that Soo-young was now in charge of all the finances in the house. He barked at her, asking why she kept bothering him when he'd told her to stay away. In that moment, Jin-yeon realized how blind she'd been to ever love a man like him. Il-hyun then reached into his pocket and threw an envelope at her. He told her to take the money and use it to move, claiming this was her final settlement. He warned her never to contact him again and never to show her face in front of him for the rest of her life. Jin-yeon was absolutely livid at the way Il-hyun was treating her, as if he were tossing spare change to a beggar. She hurled the envelope to the ground and screamed that he was an ungrateful snake. Il-hyun, showing his true colors, snatched the envelope back up and threw it right in her face. Terrified of a public scandal, he dragged his ex-wife outside. Jin-yeon threatened him, saying that if he didn't transfer the money immediately, she'd report his affair with his student to the university and make sure he hit the front page news. But Il-hyun fought back dirty. He used their daughter to threaten her, claiming he wasn't someone she could just push around. What he didn't know was that Hyung-min had overheard the entire messy conversation. He started putting the pieces together. To confirm his suspicions, he intercepted Jin-yeon just as she was trying to leave, desperate to get to the truth. Back when they broke up, Jin-yeon had never mentioned anything about a child, and she certainly wasn't going to start now. Left with more questions than answers, Hyung-min was incredibly restless. As soon as he got back to the office, he ordered his team to dig into her past. Meanwhile, Jin-yeon was venting to her friends about her failure to get the child support money. When Jang-soon and Young-mi found out that Il-hyun had already received the cash but was refusing to hand it over, and was even telling Jin-yeon to go beg Soo-young for it, they were beyond furious. These two partners in crime were clearly just passing the buck to avoid paying up. The two friends decided they'd had enough and went to hunt the cheating couple down to settle the score. They raided Soo-young's place, starting with a barrage of insults before trying to drag her to the bank to transfer the money to Jin-yeon. But Soo-young shoved them off and had the nerve to look Jang-soon in the eye and drop a bombshell. Hana isn't even Il-hyun's daughter, so why on earth would he pay child support? He's been raising someone else's kid for years. He's already done more than enough. Jang-soon and Young-mi were completely paralyzed. What on earth were they hearing? They couldn't wrap their heads around it and ended up leaving empty-handed. However, they were convinced Soo-young was just a pathological liar. A straight A student like Jin-yeon would never do something so scandalous, right? After discussing it, they decided to keep this rumor to themselves for now. Since Jin-yeon was still broke and had to move out immediately, Jang-soon stepped up and suggested Jin-yeon move into her place temporarily until she got back on her feet. With nowhere else to go, Jin-yeon had no choice but to agree. Moving day arrived in a flash. All the neighbors came out to help, and for a moment, the atmosphere was actually happy and lively. Il-hyun knew today was the day she was moving out. Even though they were in a toxic war and things were incredibly awkward, they had lived together for years, and he couldn't help but feel a tiny pang of concern. He found himself wondering if she had enough money and where she was even going. Soo-young caught him looking distracted and immediately got jealous, throwing some shady comments his way. Despite Soo-young's attempts to stop him, Il-hyun eventually caved and called his ex-wife. Jin-yeon didn't hide anything. She told him straight up that she had moved and was currently living at Soo-young's sister's house. She told Il-hyun to pass a message to his mistress. If you want me to disappear, hand over the child support. In that moment, Soo-young, the person who caused all this mess, realized she had accidentally dug her own grave by letting her sister take Jin-yeon in. As for Hyung-min, the investigation he ordered finally yielded results. It turned out that right after they broke up all those years ago, Jin-yeon had immediately married Il-hyun and given birth to Hana just a few months later. He did the math, and there was no doubt about it. That little girl was definitely his. The next day, the lead model for the DL Group's campaign got into a car accident and couldn't film. Since the project was on a tight deadline, the company didn't hesitate. They decided to bring in Il-hyun as the replacement. His perfect family man image was a huge hit with female viewers, making him the best choice. However, the contract came with a massive loyalty clause. he was forbidden from getting a divorce during the contract period. If he breached this, he'd have to pay a penalty of 50 times his fee. Il-hyun, so blinded by greed and the desire for fame, signed the contract without a second thought. He even told them not to worry about his family life, claiming their relationship was solid, as everyone could see. He had no idea that this blatant lie was about to blow up his entire life. When he got home, he bragged about the big news to Soo-young. She was ecstatic, and the two of them sat there praising each other. When she heard that a smooth shoot could earn them $50 million in fees, her jaw dropped. Where else could you find a job that made you famous and rich at the same time? Il-hyun then added the cherry on top. If they could film the commercial with his whole family, the pay would double. One look at Soo-young's eyes, and you could tell she wasn't happy about any of this. Meanwhile, after finally getting settled, Jin-yeon was brainstorming with her friends about finding a job. That's when Eun-young called with a hot tip. The DL group was hiring new staff, and there was no age limit. Jin-yeon felt like this was the big break she needed and decided to go for it. But the second she arrived for the interview, she ran into Il-hyun, who was there to sign his big contract. Since Hyung-min was standing right there, Il-hyun immediately kicked into actor mode. He pretended Jin-yeon had come there just to pick him up, telling her he'd head home as soon as he finished his work and not to worry. He lied through his teeth without even blinking. The moment Hyung-min was out of earshot, Il-hyun's face transformed. When he found out Jin-yeon was there for an interview, he panicked about his divorce being exposed. He warned her about the contract he just signed, the one with the strict no divorce clause and a ban on any negative publicity. He demanded that his ex-wife cooperate with him to keep up the charade. Obviously, Jin-yeon wasn't having it. How does a man who cheated with his student, sold her father's house, and didn't pay a single cent in support dare to ask for a favor? But Il-hyun shamelessly doubled down on the threats. He told her that if she dared to reveal the divorce, he wouldn't just sit back. He would tell the whole world that the marriage ended because she was pregnant with another man's child. Once he felt he'd scared her enough, he changed his tone again. He promised that if she helped him keep the secret until he got the ad money, he'd pay her everything, the child support and extra compensation. But Jin-yeon was done believing his lies. She wasn't going to be bullied anymore. She pointed out that compared to Hana's background, his scandalous affair with a student would be a much bigger hit for the tabloids. Il-hyun was rattled, questioning why she was suddenly acting so confident. The company quickly moved forward with a photo shoot. Character flaws aside, when Il-hyun was modeling, he actually looked the part. The company was thrilled with his performance and suggested that a commercial featuring his entire family would be an even bigger hit. The next day, Il-hyun got a call from the firm. They wanted to know if he discussed it with his family because the next shoot was starting soon and they needed to finalize the cast. When Soo-young heard about this requirement, she was dead set against it. They were already divorced. Why was he still so tangled up with his ex-wife? But Il-hyun, obsessed with fame, wasn't about to let this opportunity slip away. The next day, he had the nerve to ask Jin-yeon to do the family shoot. Unsurprisingly, she shot him down instantly and walked away without a second thought. After being rejected, Il-hyun went back to his office and racked his brain for a new plan. That's when he decided to target his daughter. Children are easy to trick, especially by a father they trust. With a few manipulative words, he convinced Hana to follow his lead and, even worse, told her to keep the whole thing a secret from Jin-yeon. Just like that, Il-hyun snuck his daughter off to the film set. Meanwhile, a completely clueless Jin-yeon got a call from the teacher asking why Hana wasn't in class. Panic set in. Hana was such a good, obedient kid. Where could she possibly be? Jin-yeon begged for time off work and rushed out like a whirlwind. By chance, she ran into Hyung-min and the film crew. As soon as they saw her, they started asking about the shoot. Why didn't you come to the set today? Your husband and daughter are filming right now. Your daughter is a natural. She saved us so much time. In that moment, everything clicked. Realizing Il-hyun had abducted their daughter for the ad, she furiously tracked them down to where they were having lunch. Jin-yeon grabbed Hana's hand to leave, but Il-hyun shamelessly chased after them. He tried to apologize, claiming things were so rushed that he didn't have time to notify her before picking Hana up. But then Hana started crying, saying, "But Dad, you told me you already talked to Mom about this." Caught in his own lie, Il-hyun didn't even care anymore. He shouted that he was Hana's father and asked if a divorce meant he had no right to see his own child. Hearing the news that her parents were officially divorced, Hana ran away in total heartbreak. Jin-yeon immediately chased after her, leaving Il-hyun standing there fuming. But the thing that should have terrified him most was happening right behind his back. Hyung-min had overheard every single word of their conversation. If Il-hyun really was divorced, it was going to be a total PR nightmare for the company. So, Hyung-min didn't waste a single second and ordered a full-blown investigation into his marital status. When the truth finally came out, that Il-hyun had been divorced for quite some time and was actually living with his student, it wasn't just a breach of contract. It was a massive liability for the company. The DL group wasted no time in demanding that he pay for the damages. Il-hyun tried to squirm his way out of it, claiming he wasn't officially divorced when he signed the contract. But facing Hyung-min's cold, hard evidence. He was finally forced to shut up. Meanwhile, back at home, Soo-young was lounging around, staring at handsome photos of Il-hyun and daydreaming about their perfect future together. Her little fantasy came to a crashing halt when a furious Il-hyun burst through the door. When she heard the news that their divorce had been exposed and they were facing a massive lawsuit, Soo-young started to spiral. Il-hyun was at his absolute breaking point. He started screaming at Soo-young, blaming her for the whole mess. He claimed it was all because she refused to pay Jin-yeon the child support, which forced Jin-yeon to get a job and, coincidentally, end up at the very company he was working for. Soo-young immediately pointed the finger back at Jin-yeon, convinced she was the one who snitched. These two were so incredibly selfish that they couldn't even look in the mirror for 1 second. It was always someone else's fault. The next day, Il-hyun rushed to find Jin-yeon and, without saying a single word, slapped her across the face. Then, he started unloading on her. This guy was honestly disgusting. He was the one who gambled on fame without thinking about the consequences, and now that things had gone south, he was blaming his ex-wife. But facing his insults this time, Jin-yeon didn't hold back at all. She threw it right back in his face. Who was the real troublemaker here? A university professor who sleeps with his student, secretly steals family assets, and doesn't pay a dime of child support, leaving his wife and child on the verge of homelessness. A piece of trash is still a piece of trash. Il-hyun, seeing that she was finally standing up to him, accused her of having a backbone only because someone was supporting her, specifically Hyung-min. He claimed their relationship must be unusual. Jae-young-soon and Yoon-mi showed up right on time and gave him a piece of their minds. Before he left, Il-hyun had the nerve to give Jin-yeon an ultimatum. He told her she had to go to the company and lie for him. He wanted her to tell them that even though they were legally divorced, they were still head over heels in love and were planning to remarry. He threatened her, saying that if he lost everything, he'd make sure she suffered too. Jae-young-soon and Yoon-mi had seen enough. They told Jin-yeon it was time to learn how to fight back. Why was she letting this guy threaten her when he was the one who destroyed the marriage? Jin-yeon finally declared that she wouldn't be his puppet anymore. She had endured everything for her daughter's sake, but now, she had absolutely nothing left to fear. Il-hyun, being the desperate snake he is, went home and immediately posted a statement online. He claimed that he and Jin-yeon were still very much in love, that they only had a minor issue that led to the divorce, but they had talked it out and were getting remarried. He even dared to demand an explanation from the DL group for accusing him of a breach of contract. This post put Hyung-min and the company in an impossible corner. In the middle of this PR disaster, Hyung-min reached out to Jin-yeon, hoping she would stand up and expose Il-hyun's lies. The losses to the company were going to be catastrophic if they didn't handle this right. Eun-young, the lawyer who knew everything about their divorce, also sought her out. As a representative of the company, she hoped Jin-yeon would tell the truth. As a friend, she urged her to stop being a doormat. Jin-yeon was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Right then, she got another call from Il-hyun. He was still the same old toxic jerk, starting the conversation with a threat. He told her that if she dared to talk nonsense, he would make sure she lost everything. That was the final straw. Il-hyun had officially pushed her too far. After a moment of hesitation, she picked up the phone and called a reporter. She sat down and told them everything. She revealed that before the DL group's show even aired, they were already divorced, but for the sake of her ex-husband and daughter, she had agreed to play along in his twisted little charade. Jin-yeon admitted her mistake and publicly apologized for misleading everyone. And just like that, her statement went viral. Overnight, the tables turned. All of Il-hyun's interviews were scrubbed from the internet, and one by one, brands started dropping him like a hot potato. A furious Il-hyun tracked Jin-yeon down, demanding she fix the interview immediately. He barked at her that because of her words, all his work had been canceled. He threatened her, saying that if she didn't restore his honor in front of the public, he would make sure she never had a moment's peace. But Jin-yeon had finally found her backbone. She went all in, calling out her ex-husband and telling him that there's no such thing as a secret that stays hidden forever. Those who gain things through lies eventually have to pay the price. She told Il-hyun he should be thanking her for stopping here. She warned him that if he kept coming after her, she'd start exposing secrets that were even more explosive than this one. With Jin-yeon officially out of his control and public opinion spiraling out of hand, reporters were swarming him like vultures for a scoop. Il-hyun felt like he was losing his mind. Seeing her soulmate in trouble, Soo-young decided she needed to prove her loyalty. She reached out to a reporter, claiming she had some juicy information to sell. The moment they met, she spilled a pack of lies, telling the reporter that Hana wasn't Il-hyun's biological daughter, that Jin-yeon had secretly gotten pregnant before they even married. She painted Il-hyun as a saintly professor who hid the divorce only because he didn't want the girl to be hurt. She even claimed Il-hyun desperately wanted to remarry Jin-yeon, but she refused and started spreading malicious rumors online to ruin him. This hypocritical woman was basically writing a fan fiction of her own life, and she did it all without even needing a script. The reporters didn't care if the story was true or not. All they cared about was having a scandalous headline to feed the hungry public. When Il-hyun found out that Soo-young had intentionally leaked the truth about Hana's parentage, he was actually angry at first. Despite the war with Jin-yeon, Hana was still the girl he had raised. She might not have been his blood, but to him, she was more than his own flesh and blood. But Soo-young manipulated him, telling him that the only way to flip the script and save himself was to turn the spotlight on Jin-yeon's shady past. Il-hyun pretended to be reluctant, but when he realized this might actually save his career, he chose to stay silent. He chose his fame over his daughter's dignity. The rumors spread like wildfire. Jin-yeon saw the news while she was at work and went into a total panic, begging for time off to rush home and check on her daughter. When she got there, she found her ex-husband waiting. She furiously interrogated him. "How dare you even show your face to her?" She called him out for pretending to love his daughter while stabbing her in the back. Il-hyun, being the narcissist he is, blamed Jin-yeon for everything. He claimed that if she had just cooperated with him, none of this mess would have happened. Jin-yeon told him that she had endured them bullying her for years, but now that they were targeting her daughter, the nice girl act was officially over. She wasn't letting them go this time. Il-hyun was stunned. He never expected the weak Jin-yeon to snap like this. Knowing her daughter's secret was now public knowledge, Jin-yeon felt a wave of guilt. She felt like a failure for not being able to give Hana a good life or even protect her from these monsters. But she knew she couldn't afford to be weak anymore. She let go of all her fears and decided it was time for cold-blooded revenge against everyone who hurt them. The next day, the news of the prestigious professor sleeping with his student exploded across the university. The students were in an uproar, gossiping in every corner. Soo-young arrived at school, looking pale as a ghost, and started frantically tearing down the protest posters. When she got home, she took her frustration out on Il-hyun. She couldn't understand why she was the one being humiliated. In her twisted mind, after venting at home, Soo-young marched over to Jin-yeon's workplace, planning to use her old tricks to intimidate her. But she had no idea that the soft peach she used to bully was gone. Back at the university, the lecture halls that used to be packed were now empty. Instead of students, the blackboards were covered in slogans demanding one thing: Il-hyun's immediate resignation. The scandal got so loud that the school principal had to personally intervene. He even subtly hinted that Jin-yeon was a smart woman who wouldn't risk her reputation for no reason. But Il-hyun was still in deep denial, stubbornly lying through his teeth and claiming that every single accusation was a total fabrication. The principal clearly didn't want a messy scandal on his hands. He told Il-hyun that if the claims on those posters weren't true, he'd better produce some hard proof. Then he turned and stormed off in a rage. Fuming, Il-hyun called Jin-yeon, demanding a meeting. Jin-yeon shut him down instantly. But Il-hyun wouldn't give up. He ambushed her at the entrance to her office, demanding she rewrite the posters to clear his name. Jin-yeon stood her ground and refused. Il-hyun started to get aggressive, trying to get physical with her, but Hyung-min appeared out of nowhere and pulled him off her. He mocked the former star professor, saying he'd lost all his class now that he was resorting to hitting women. Realizing he wasn't going to win this one, Il-hyun threatened Jin-yeon one last time before leaving. Humiliated and exhausted, Il-hyun went out to drink alone. When he stumbled home wasted, he found Soo-young casually sipping wine. He lashed out, blaming her for the mess and asking how she could be in the mood to drink at a time like this. But Soo-young didn't back down. She argued that since everyone knew about them anyway, wasn't it better to just be out in the open? Il-hyun was disgusted. How could they just pretend they didn't hear everyone talking about them? Soo-young, still living in her own world, suggested they just find a place where no one knew them and live a quiet life. But Il-hyun wasn't about to give up his status. He'd spent years climbing to the top. He wasn't just going to walk away. He told her to stop living in a fantasy novel. This was real life, not a story where you can just change everything on a whim. The loud argument finally ended with Soo-young caving in. The next day, the principal met with Il-hyun again. But before the principal could even open his mouth, Soo-young started an Oscar-worthy performance. She claimed all these lies were made up by Jin-yeon because she was bitter about her daughter's secret being exposed, and that Jin-yeon was just trying to frame her. She painted herself as the ultimate victim. Honestly, it was a waste that she wasn't in movies. The school realized that a deep investigation wouldn't benefit them at all. Soo-young's performance gave them the explanation they needed to let it go. They decided to look the other way and not hold Il-hyun accountable. Relieved, Il-hyun immediately shared the good news with Soo-young. But this woman clearly didn't know when to quit. The look in her eyes said she was about to cause even more trouble. When Jin-yeon heard the news that the school wasn't going to punish him, she realized she had to take matters into her own hands. She had come too far to give up now. To completely take down this toxic professor and his student, she decided to expose every single dirty secret Il-hyun had. Her team started their operation. First, Jae-young-soon and Young-mi tracked down a real estate agent to get the proof of Il-hyun and Soo-young's secret lease. Then, they hit the property management office to print out the documents proving he had transferred the house to his mistress. Meanwhile, the student representatives at the university were preparing an anonymous complaint to get Il-hyun fired. One of the students had spotted a photo online of Il-hyun at an OBGYN clinic. They realized that if they could get a photo of the two of them together there, they could prove the relationship beyond a doubt. They went to the hospital hoping to get Soo-young's medical records, but the nurse refused, citing patient privacy. After the students practically begged her, the nurse agreed to meet with Jin-yeon. Still, she insisted she wouldn't change her mind. Jin-yeon then laid out the whole story of Il-hyun and Soo-young, explaining that a professor like Il-hyun was poisonous to the students and should have been kicked out a long time ago. Moved by Jin-yeon's plea, the nurse finally promised to rethink her decision. And where was Il-hyun during all of this? Thinking he was in the clear, he was happily taking his daughter out for a meal. You have to admit, as terrible as he is as a man, he actually seems like a good father to that girl. By total accident, Hana mentioned to her dad that she had met Hyung-min. The second Il-hyun heard that name, his suspicion went through the roof. Thinking back to everything he'd seen lately, he was convinced the relationship between Jin-yeon and Hyung-min was anything but normal. Il-hyun went as far as taking his daughter to Jin-yeon's office just to interrogate Hyung-min. He demanded to know exactly what was going on between him and his ex-wife. Hyung-min didn't want to waste his breath on a guy like Il-hyun, but Il-hyun wouldn't let it go. He was obsessed with the idea that they were hiding some deep secret and was determined to drag it into the light. He even had the nerve to warn Hyung-min to stay away from his daughter. But Hyung-min didn't hold back. He snapped that he was simply meeting a family member of one of his employees and asked what that had to do with Il-hyun anyway. Then, he dropped the ultimate truth bomb. He reminded Il-hyun that he wasn't even Hana's biological father. Il-hyun was left completely speechless, his ego shattered. Unable to let it go, Il-hyun tried to turn his rage on Jin-yeon and humiliate her. But Jin-yeon wasn't the pushover he could easily bully anymore. Right at that perfect moment, Jin-yeon received a text from the nurse. It was a photo of Il-hyun and Soo-young together at the OBGYN clinic. She stared him down with ice in her eyes. Il-hyun felt a chill of guilt. Jin-yeon showed him the photo and told him to brace himself. Il-hyun panicked instantly, snatching at the phone, but with his daughter standing right there, he had to force himself to keep a lid on his temper. The next day, the group gathered all their hard-earned proof and headed straight to the principal's office, laying out every document and piece of evidence they had. When Il-hyun heard the news, he sprinted there in a desperate panic. Jin-yeon warned the principal that if he continued to protect Il-hyun, she'd take the entire story to the press. She made it clear, if that happened, it wouldn't just be the university's reputation at stake. The principal's own career would be on the line too. This gave the principal a massive headache. Youngmi added fuel to the fire, telling the principal that Il-hyun and Soo-young were living together at this very moment. She told him if he didn't believe them, he should go verify it immediately before they had a chance to sneak away. Il-hyun burst into the office, trying to stop the disaster. But before he could even open his mouth, the principal ripped into him with a savage lecture. Fuming, Il-hyun chased after Jin-yeon as she left and grabbed her. She gave him a stern warning, "Never lay a hand on me again, or I'll sue you for harassment." Il-hyun was stunned. He couldn't believe the foolish woman he used to control had become this powerful. Watching Il-hyun break out in a cold sweat, Youngmi and Jin-yeon couldn't resist mocking him one last time. It felt incredibly satisfying. Once he realized how serious the situation was, Il-hyun scrambled to contact Soo-young, telling her to pack their things immediately. They sensed the trap closing in. They weren't even done packing when the doorbell rang, scaring them half to death. They checked 3 times to make sure it was just the apartment manager before they dared to open the door. But they were shocked to find the student representatives standing right there beside the manager. The students asked them point-blank if they were living together. Soo-young tried to lie, claiming she had just dropped by to discuss her studies with the professor. But she forgot about the clueless apartment manager standing next to her, who asked, "Wait, aren't you guys living together?" The scene became instantly, painfully awkward. Il-hyun realized his lies were finished. He had run out of excuses. He collapsed onto the bed in total defeat. The next day, the principal called Il-hyun in. Because of the undeniable evidence Jin-yeon had provided, the principal suggested that Il-hyun resign voluntarily to save a tiny shred of his dignity. Il-hyun was devastated. Years of climbing the social ladder had just ended in total ruin. Even though he was bitter, he had no choice but to write his resignation letter. Meanwhile, Soo-young was at home waiting for good news, but instead, she received a notice that she'd been expelled and fired. The moment she hung up, Il-hyun walked in and told her he'd officially resigned. Soo-young couldn't accept it, screaming that he hadn't begged the principal hard enough. She even threatened to go to the principal herself to talk sense into him. Il-hyun told her that if he didn't resign, he'd be formally fired and blacklisted, making it impossible to ever get another job in academia. This was the only way out. But instead of seeing her own faults, Soo-young started looking for a fight. The moment she saw Jin-yeon, she started her provocations again, asking what right an abandoned woman had to be so smug and ruin the professor's career. Even at rock bottom, Soo-young felt zero remorse. Jin-yeon fired back without mercy, telling her she had been a fool for far too long and that those days were officially over. These two really have some nerve. They took an inch and wanted a mile. After torturing Jin-yeon for so long, they actually dared to turn around and question her? It's like they completely wiped their own crimes from their memories. Suddenly, Soo-young dropped her arrogant tone and started begging Jin-yeon. She actually asked Jin-yeon to go to the principal with her and beg for forgiveness so that Il-hyun wouldn't lose his job. Jin-yeon wasn't about to entertain this disgusting plea. She gave Soo-young a final warning. Until I get every cent of that child support, I'm not letting any of this go. Seeing that Jin-yeon was standing her ground, Soo-young dropped the act instantly. She went right back to insulting Jin-yeon about Hana's real parentage. But this time, she didn't just get a slap in the face. Her own mother happened to be standing right there and overheard the entire conversation. The poor woman was devastated. She couldn't believe her own daughter had become such a monster. The next day, the mother went to see Jin-yeon personally to apologize. Even when confronted by her own mother, Soo-young still insisted she had done nothing wrong. She felt like her mom should be siding with her instead of a stranger. She actually asked, "What's so wrong about two people being in love? Why is everyone constantly making our lives miserable?" Watching her daughter remain completely unrepentant, the mother was utterly crushed. You'd think the drama would stop there, but Il-hyun ambushed Jin-yeon at her office yet again. He interrogated her, asking how she could be so heartless as to use every dirty trick in the book to push him into a corner. "Are you happy now that I've been forced to quit?" he barked. Then, in his typical narcissistic fashion, he claimed he wouldn't stay down for long and would bounce back soon. Jin-yeon didn't have time for his nonsense. She told him a professor like him should have been fired a long time ago. Before walking away, she warned him, "Stop blaming everyone else for your own failures. Stop acting like you're so noble. Now that you've hit rock bottom, you'd better start thinking about how you're even going to survive. Everything you owe me, I'm going to take it back, piece by piece." Despite her toughness with Il-hyun, Jin-yeon felt eaten up with guilt over her daughter. Years ago, she had rushed into a marriage with Il-hyun, who was willing to accept her, just to give Hana a complete family. She never expected that choice would end up hurting her daughter the most. Looking at how mature and understanding Hana was, Jin-yeon desperately wanted to tell her who her real father was, but the words just wouldn't come out. Meanwhile, Hyung-min was getting more suspicious by the second after hearing Il-hyun admit he wasn't the biological father. From the first moment he met Hana, he had felt an unexplainable, deep connection with the child. He needed to see her again. So, he went to her school without permission and took her out for lunch. He even gave her his phone number, telling her to call him whenever she wanted to see him. On the way back, the two of them were chatting and laughing like a real father and daughter. But just as they were saying their goodbyes, a motorcycle came speeding toward them out of nowhere. Without a second thought, Hyung-min lunged forward to shield Hana. Everyone was okay, but Hana ended up with a nasty scratch on her leg. Hyung-min rushed to give her first aid and wanted to take her to the hospital, but Hana politely refused. She told him, "You already treated me to lunch, and I've taken up too much of your time. This is just a small scratch. I can put some medicine on it at home." Watching how sweet and well-behaved she was, Hyung-min found himself wishing more than anything that she was his own daughter. Back at the office, Hyung-min looked at the blood on his handkerchief and had a bold idea. It wasn't long before a package arrived from a friend. One look at the DNA test results and Hyung-min nearly jumped out of his chair. He had to settle this today. He tracked down Jin-yeon and shoved the DNA report in front of her face. He was fuming, demanding to know why she hadn't told him the truth when he asked. Jin-yeon exploded with years of pent-up resentment. She reminded him that he was the one who left without a word. How was she supposed to tell him anything? She brought up how his mother had been violently opposed to them being together. For all these years, Il-hyun might have been a terrible husband, but he was a great father, she shouted. "And you? You disappear for years and suddenly show up with a piece of paper, thinking you're a dad now? You lost that right the day you abandoned me." She told Hyung-min to stop having delusions about Hana, stating that the girl belonged to her and her alone. She threw the report back at him and stormed off. But as much as Jin-yeon tried to push him away, she couldn't stop Hyung-min from reaching out to his daughter. He called Hana later that day, and it was clear the little girl really liked this uncle. They spent the day taking photos and playing games together. For the first time in a long time, Hana felt the genuine love and protection of a father. Hyung-min looked at the little girl and saw Jin-yeon's reflection in her every move. He was dying to tell Hana that he was her real father, but Jin-yeon wasn't having it. Knowing they were meeting behind her back, she confronted Hyung-min, begging him not to just show up and see the girl whenever he felt like it. She didn't want Hana to get hurt again. Hyung-min couldn't understand her hesitation. Now that all the obstacles were gone and they had a daughter together, why couldn't they just get back together and give Hana a real, complete family? But Jin-yeon shut that idea down instantly. At this point, she just wanted a quiet, peaceful life. But peace wasn't in the cards as long as Soo-young was around. Since Jin-yeon wasn't answering her calls, the mistress barged straight into Jin-yeon's workplace. She started barking at her, blaming Jin-yeon for tattling and telling her mother everything. She even had the delusional nerve to claim that Jin-yeon was only doing this to pressure her into breaking up with Il-hyun so she could steal him back. Jin-yeon had reached her limit. She told her that a man as pathetic as Il-hyun was someone she wouldn't even pick up if he were lying in the trash. Why on earth would she fight over him? Soo-young, convinced Jin-yeon was just jealous, started bragging about how she and Il-hyun were getting married soon. Jin-yeon almost burst out laughing. She wasn't the least bit curious about their toxic life and just wanted to be done with them. As she stood up to leave, Soo-young kept pestering her, telling her to move out of her sister's house and stop destroying other people's happiness. Jin-yeon fired back. "Give me the child support money you stole, and I'll be out of there in a heartbeat." Then, she walked away without looking back. Back at home, Soo-young complained to Il-hyun about the drama with her mother. She felt guilty because she hadn't seen her mom in ages, thanks to Jin-yeon. Il-hyun suggested they go out for dinner to clear their heads. They had both lost their jobs, yet they somehow still had the mood for a fancy date. Talk about karma meeting you at the door. As soon as they walked into the restaurant, they ran right into Jin-yeon and Hyung-min having dinner together. Soo-young's jealousy flared up immediately. She marched over to cause a scene, mocking Jin-yeon for being heartless enough to enjoy a luxury dinner with a man while living off her sister's charity and abandoning her daughter. Even Il-hyun felt the secondhand embarrassment and tried to pull her away, but Soo-young was out of control. She told Jin-yeon that if she'd found herself a sugar daddy, she should use his money to move out instead of being a squatter. But Jin-yeon was done being a doormat. She picked up her water glass and splashed it right onto Soo-young's dress. Soo-young looked like she was about to explode with rage, but she still tried to play the victim, bad-mouthing Jin-yeon to Hyung-min. Hyung-min had seen enough. He didn't give Soo-young the time of day. He just dropped some cash for the bill and walked out with Jin-yeon. Il-hyun, who was always obsessed with his prestigious image, felt like he'd lost all face. He chased them out and demanded to know what the relationship was between Hyung-min and his ex-wife. Hyung-min looked him dead in the eye and told him, "We're getting married." In that moment, Il-hyun felt like he was losing his daughter forever. When they got home, Soo-young was still nagging him, telling him to stop making a fool of himself over Jin-yeon. She ranted about how Jin-yeon was out to get them and why he was still defending her. Watching Soo-young become more and more irrational, Il-hyun just stormed out. Walking alone, Hyung-min's words kept ringing in his head. The thought of the daughter he raised for years, calling another man dad, was eating him alive. He called Hana and asked to meet. But when he saw her, he realized she had become distant. What she said next completely broke him. Hana told him she'd seen the news online. She knew he'd admitted he wasn't her real father. She said, "You only want Soo-young now? You don't need me anymore." She told him that her friend's parents were divorced, but still managed to have dinner together. She never had that chance. So, she said, "You're not my dad anymore." Even though Il-hyun kept apologizing, the damage was done. Hana ran away in tears. Il-hyun tried to chase her, but ran right into Jin-yeon, who was also looking for her. She looked at this shameless man and gave him one final warning. Don't ever come near Hana again. If you actually care about her well-being, just stay out of her life forever. It's only now that Il-hyun is finally feeling the bitter taste of losing the most precious things in his life. He's probably kicking himself, thinking that if he hadn't been such a jerk, he wouldn't have ended up in this total mess. Unemployed and desperate, he finally caught a break when a friend landed him an interview. He bragged about the news to Soo-young and rushed over. But before he could even set foot in the room, he got a message. The interview was canceled due to an unexpected emergency. With nowhere else to turn, he started looking at schools in the middle of nowhere just to have a shot at a job. But while he was on his way, he got another call. The school had already filled the position and told him not to bother coming. Back at home, facing Soo-young's questions and the harsh reality of his consecutive failures, the truth finally started to sink in. Frustrated and bitter, he started drinking day and night to numb the pain. Even Soo-young, who was supposed to be head over heels for him, was starting to get tired of his pathetic, depressed state. She told him she was going out to meet her friends, but Il-hyun was convinced she was just trying to avoid him. Soo-young didn't even care anymore. She just gave him an impatient look and walked out without saying a word. Her cold shoulder sent Il-hyun into a drunken rage. He remembered what Hyung-min had said to him, and in his twisted mind, he decided that if his life was over, there should be too. In a total fury, he stumbled over to Jin-yeon's house just as she was saying goodbye to Hyung-min. He started screaming at her, blaming her for ruining his life while she got to live comfortably. Hyung-min, who was just about to leave, heard the commotion and realized Jin-yeon was in trouble. Verbal abuse wasn't enough for Il-hyun. He actually tried to get physical with her. As they were scuffling, Hyung-min rushed back and shoved Il-hyun away. But being drunk and stupid, Il-hyun didn't back down. He turned his aggression on Hyung-min instead. Facing this persistent stalker, Hyung-min finally lost his patience and gave Il-hyun the lesson he deserved. He picked up his basket of flowers and gave Il-hyun a final warning. If he ever bothered Jin-yeon again, it would take a lot more than one punch to fix him. The next morning, when Il-hyun woke up, Soo-young asked about the bruises on his face, but he just lied and said he'd fallen down. He then got a call from a friend about another university that was hiring. The school board actually liked his resume, but because of all the rumors, they were hesitant. Even though Il-hyun tried his best to act like the victim, the school stayed cautious and said they'd be reaching out to people involved to verify the story. This sent Soo-young into a panic. She knew they'd probably go to Jin-yeon to ask about those protest posters. Desperate to save Il-hyun's career, she suggested they go and beg Jin-yeon for mercy. But Il-hyun was dead set against it. He'd already lost enough face and refused to bow down to the woman he believed had framed him. He even told Soo-young that it was because of Jin-yeon that Hyung-min had punched him. But Soo-young wasn't about to give up that easily. She went to Jaeyoung-soon, hoping she would talk Jin-yeon into clearing Il-hyun's name. But Jaeyoung-soon, who actually knows right from wrong, flat out refused, stating she would never help someone so toxic. Still, Soo-young had the nerve to go to Jin-yeon anyway. She told Jin-yeon to remember all the years Il-hyun spent raising Hana and begged her to give the man a way to survive. Jin-yeon made her stance crystal clear. She wanted nothing to do with them, and she definitely wasn't going to lie for them. Seeing that her pity act wasn't working, Soo-young dropped the mask and started using Hana's secret as a threat again. But she seriously underestimated the power of a mother's love. The next day, Hyung-min, who now knew for a fact that Hana was his biological daughter, tried to use work as an excuse to get close to Jin-yeon. He thought they had a real shot at getting back together, but Jin-yeon was constantly shutting him down. She didn't want to be the reason Eun-young's happiness was snatched away after she'd waited for him for so long. But you can't really control your heart, can you? To make sure Eun-young finally gave up hope, Hyung-min invited both her and Jin-yeon out for dinner. And as it happened, Jin-yeon's best friend Young-mi was also there. During dinner, Young-mi couldn't help being the nosy friend and asked Hyung-min about his love life. Specifically, why a successful, catch-of-the-day man like him was still single. Hyung-min didn't hold back. He spilled the beans about his first love back in college, explaining how his family's intense opposition forced him to abandon her and head overseas for his studies. He revealed that by the time he finished school and returned, he found out she was already married. He was ready to give up on her forever, but then he found out she had been cast aside by her husband. Now that she was free, he vowed he would never let her go again. Hearing Hyung-min lay his heart bare like that made Jin-yeon incredibly uncomfortable. But for Eun-young, it was a total nightmare. Unable to face the truth that the man she loved was obsessed with her friend, she ran out of the restaurant in tears. Worried about her sister, Young-mi chased after her. That left only Hyung-min and Jin-yeon at the table. Jin-yeon immediately scolded him for being so heartless, asking how he could humiliate and hurt a girl's feelings like that in front of everyone. But Hyung-min stood his ground. He told her his mother had taught him from a young age that if you don't like someone, you have to be honest and reject them. He claimed he was being blunt because he didn't want Eun-young to fall any deeper into a hopeless crush. Jin-yeon thought he was being completely unreasonable and stormed off in a huff. Hyung-min wasn't about to let her walk away that easily. He chased her down, asking why she kept pushing him toward another woman when she knew exactly how he felt about her. Jin-yeon tried to end the conversation, but Hyung-min grabbed her and kissed her right there. It was such an intense scene that a middle-aged woman passing by had to turn her head away in embarrassment. You could say that after the divorce, Jin-yeon was finally living her best life. Il-hyun, on the other hand, was miserable. Now that he was officially unemployed and blacklisted because of the poster scandal, he was being rejected everywhere he went. No school wanted to touch a famous scandal-ridden professor. But Soo-young wasn't ready to give up on their future. She suggested they move to a new city, get married, have a baby, and just wait for the scandal to blow over before making a comeback. Hearing this, Il-hyun realized he was truly at the end of his rope. There's no such thing as a regret pill in this world. All he could do was sit there in a pool of his own tears. Watching Il-hyun spend his days drunk and depressed, Soo-young felt a mix of anger and pity. She couldn't stand to see the man she loved spiraling, so she reached out to an old senior colleague she hadn't seen in years for help. This woman claimed she could pull some strings and get him a job at a school out in the countryside. But there was a massive catch. She needed 200 million won in cash up front for networking fees and bribes. Back at home, Soo-young looked at their pathetic bank balance and hesitated. But just then, Il-hyun stumbled back, looking like a ghost, complaining that he was too famous for any school to hire. Seeing him in such a broken state, Soo-young comforted him, promising she would find a way to get him back behind a podium. The next day, she met the senior colleague again. Blinded by the woman's smooth talk and desperate for a solution, Soo-young handed over their entire life savings, even though there wasn't a single receipt or piece of paperwork to prove the transaction. She was full of hope, just waiting for the good news. Walking past a bridal shop, she even caught herself daydreaming about wearing a white dress and finally marrying Il-hyun. She had no idea she had just been played for a fool. When she got home, she shared the good news with Il-hyun, lying and saying a friend was helping him out with a job. She suggested they head out to the countryside in a few days to check out the school, and once they returned, they could start planning the wedding. This perfect plan only made Il-hyun more anxious. Thinking about his upcoming exile to the countryside, Hyun wanted to say goodbye to his daughter, so he set up a meeting with Hana. But as fate would have it, Hana already had plans with Hyung-min. Neither man wanted to see the other, but for the sake of the girl, they both bit their tongues and sat down. Here were two middle-aged men, both claiming to be the girl's real father. The lunch seemed civil on the surface, but the air was thick with the smell of gunpowder. Both men were desperately trying not to be the forgotten dad. What followed was the most awkward three-person meal in history. Neither man would give an inch. Hyun told Hana that he was going away to teach and wouldn't be able to visit as often. Seeing the girl get sad, he quickly added that if she ever missed him, he'd rush back instantly. Sitting right there, Hyung-min chimed in immediately, telling Hana not to worry because even if her dad was gone, he would be there to take care of her. Hyun looked like he was about to explode at Hyung-min's blatant provocation. When Hyung-min stood up to go to the bathroom, Hyun followed him and cornered him in a hallway. Hyung-min stood his ground, stating clearly that as Hana's biological father, he had every right to see her. Enraged and losing his cool, Hyun lashed out and started a fight. Meanwhile, Soo-young wasn't just sitting around either. She went to her sister's house to say goodbye to their mother, announcing that she and Hyun were moving away together and planned to get married. When Jang-soon heard her sister was in the house, she burst in and told Soon to get the hell out, declaring she didn't have a shameless sister like her. In the living room, Soo-young spotted Jin-yeon and immediately started a fight. She barked at Jin-yeon to move out of Jang-soon's house, calling her a hungry leech and accusing her of trying to destroy their happy family. Seeing Soo-young go way too far, Jang-soon didn't hesitate. She slapped her sister across the face and kicked her out. But Soo-young wasn't finished. She texted Jin-yeon, demanding a face-to-face meeting. The moment they met, she gloated about Hyun's new teaching job, mockingly asking if Jin-yeon really thought a few posters could take them down. She bragged that she wasn't going to lose easily and announced their upcoming wedding. Jin-yeon just burst out laughing. She told Soo-young that she didn't care how Hyun got that job, and she certainly didn't care about their toxic lives together. She delivered a savage parting gift. She said she hoped Hyun wouldn't run into a student younger and prettier than Soo-young in his new environment, because once the next version of Soo-young appeared, he'd end up in an even more pathetic state. Soo-young, who came there to brag, was left fuming with rage. Then, tragedy struck. Jin-yeon's father, who had gone abroad to work to pay off the debts, was killed in a sudden accident. Jin-yeon got the call while she was at work, and the shock was so much that she collapsed and fainted on the spot. Hyung-min rushed her to the hospital. When she woke up, she was hysterical, trying to run out of the building. She couldn't accept that the father who had protected her all her life was gone before she could ever repay his kindness. Once she calmed down, she knew she had to go abroad alone to bring him home. With her mother gone and her heart breaking, little Hana called Hyun. She told him about her grandfather's sudden death and how lonely she felt with her mom gone. She begged to be with her dad. Hyun, who had just been discussing wedding plans with Soo-young, was completely shocked. He couldn't believe his father-in-law had met such a tragic end. Ignoring Soo-young's protests, he called Jin-yeon immediately, offering to go with her to handle the funeral arrangements. But Jin-yeon shut him down. "We're divorced. We have nothing to do with each other. Don't bother." She hung up, but Hyun was too restless to sit still. Soo-young started causing another scene, asking why he was calling his ex-wife in front of his fiancée and why he was so obsessed with helping her. She was furious. She demanded they stick to the plan and go for their wedding dress fitting. But Hyun had zero patience left for her. He asked Soo-young when she became so heartless and unreasonable. Without another word, he turned his back on her and went to pick up his daughter. Soo-young chased after him, but this time, Hyun didn't cave. He shoved her hand away and drove off. When he brought Hana home, Soo-young's face was twisted with annoyance. But little Hana wasn't about to be bullied. She flat out refused a glass of juice from Soo-young, saying, "My mom told me not to eat or drink things from random people lately." Mentioning Jin-yeon like that really got under Soo-young's skin. Soo-young started complaining to Hyun right in front of the girl, but Hana fired back with a barrage of questions. "Why do you always talk badly about my mom? Why did you steal my dad? Why did you ruin my parents' marriage? Why did you go online and tell everyone I'm not my dad's daughter? Honestly, give it up for this kid. She really is Jin-yeon's little protector." These questions pushed Soo-young to the breaking point, and she was about to explode at the child. Seeing the situation get dangerous, Hyun dragged Soo-young outside, asking her how she could be so immature as to fight with a little girl. Soo-young snapped back, saying she didn't understand why he cared so much about a kid that wasn't even his. She told Hyun to kick the girl out immediately, threatening that if she stayed, Soo-young might do something crazy. Right in the middle of their meal, Hyung-min arrived to take Hana home. Hyun wasn't down for it, but his daughter hit him with the truth. She was the one who called Hyung-min because Soo-young clearly didn't want her there. Despite his ego being bruised, Hyun was helpless and had to let her go. Soo-young, being as toxic as ever, started spitting venom, calling Hyun a fake dad who could never compete with the real thing. Then, she demanded they stick to the plan and go wedding dress shopping. Il-hyun felt totally suffocated. He told her they needed to rethink the whole marriage thing before walking out on her. A few days later, it was the funeral for Jin-yeon's father. Soo-young actually insisted on going, promising she wouldn't cause trouble. But let's be real, a leopard doesn't change its spots. Even at a funeral, she couldn't stop being the villain. Jin-yeon told the two shameless losers to get the hell out, but Soo-young started screaming that an uneducated woman like Jin-yeon deserved to be dumped. During the scuffle, Soo-young actually pushed Jin-yeon to the ground. She had the nerve to ask what she'd done wrong, claiming it was Jin-yeon's fault for being incompetent at keeping her man. It was total chaos. Hyung-min rushed to comfort a devastated Jin-yeon, while Soo-young just kept hurling insults. Finally, Soo-young's mother reached her breaking point and slapped her daughter right in the face. She asked when she became so heartless, disrespecting everyone at a funeral. She kicked Soo-young out before things got even uglier. Il-hyun chased after Soo-young and grabbed her, asking if she had come there just to destroy everything. Soo-young didn't even hide it. She just wanted everyone to acknowledge their relationship and whined about always being the one getting yelled at. Seeing that she had officially lost it, Il-hyun abandoned her and walked away. But a crazy person doesn't just go home. Soo-young saw Jin-yeon and Hyung-min in the distance and tried to sabotage them. She told Hyung-min not to be fooled, claiming Jin-yeon was a shameless woman who got pregnant with another man's baby before marrying the professor. But Hyung-min hit her with a reality check. I'm the father of that baby, and I'm marrying her. So stop trying to ruin us. Soo-young was fuming. She couldn't believe this divorced woman still had a rich, successful man chasing her. Il-hyun went home to drink his misery away, ignoring Soo-young's calls. When she finally got back, he told her he was exhausted and couldn't deal with the world judging him anymore. He suggested they break up. But Soo-young is a pro manipulator. After some convincing and sweet talking, the two who were ready to split were suddenly back together. Meanwhile, Young-mi accidentally found out a massive secret from her mother-in-law. Soo-young might actually be Jin-yeon's sister. She panicked, knowing how much this would destroy Jin-yeon, so she met Jang-soon to figure out a plan. Jang-soon was shocked, but when she went home and saw her mom crying over Jin-yeon's father's old clothes, she knew it was true. To stop this train wreck of a marriage, Jang-soon met Il-hyun and dropped the ultimate bombshell. Soo-young is Jin-yeon's half-sister. Il-hyun was completely paralyzed. He realized he had committed the ultimate taboo. He'd been having an affair with his wife's own sister. He went home, and seeing Soo-young happily picking out wedding dresses made him feel sick. He decided right then and there to dump her for good. Soo-young was confused, demanding to know why he changed his mind after being so happy that morning. She accused him of going back to his ex-wife or daughter. Il-hyun didn't want to explain the disgusting truth, so he just started packing his bags. But Soo-young refused to let him leave without an explanation. This toxic, twisted mess was officially driving Il-hyun insane. Soo-young was convinced that Jin-yeon was the one pulling the strings to split them up. Since Jin-yeon wasn't picking up her calls, she stormed right into her office to cause a massive scene. Jin-yeon couldn't believe it. She asked this woman, who always claimed to be living in a honeymoon phase, why she was here acting like a total lunatic. Soo-young barked back, accusing Jin-yeon of playing dirty behind her back and making her precious professor break up with her. Jin-yeon almost burst out laughing. She told Soo-young she had zero interest in a piece of trash she had already thrown away and to stop dragging her name into their mess. Then, she gave Soo-young a chilling reminder. With a man as unfaithful as Il-hyun, you'd better watch out, or some other wildflower on the side of the road will steal him from you, too. Getting insulted from head to toe when she came there to bully someone made Soo-young's blood boil. She went home to an empty house and a suitcase on the bed, and in a fit of rage, she started smashing everything she normally cherished. Her beloved professor had officially gone ghost and left with nothing but heartbreak. Sing turned to the bottle to drown her sorrows. Meanwhile, Jin-yeon accidentally found out the shocking truth from her best friend. She was devastated. She wondered what kind of twisted karma this was. She thought about confronting Soo-young's mother, but she swallowed the words at the last second. Despite everything she'd suffered, the thought of them being sisters made Jin-yeon start worrying. She was actually scared that an abandoned Soo-young might do something desperate to herself. She called Soo-young, but there was no answer. Her gut told her something was terribly wrong. When the group arrived at Soo-young's place, they found her unconscious in bed with a high fever. Seeing her like this broke Jin-yeon's heart. She decided to reach out to Il-hyun. The man who used to act so tough was now drowning in regret. He kept apologizing, saying that if he'd known they were sisters, he would never have done something so stupid, no matter how evil he was. He literally dropped to his knees in front of Jin-yeon. She demanded to know why he hadn't just listened to her and cut Soo-young off sooner. But Il-hyun didn't even care anymore. He went and told Soo-young the truth. Soo-young refused to believe it. She was convinced Jin-yeon had conspired with her family to lie to her. She burst into Jin-yeon's home, screaming that Jin-yeon was a squatter who had now even bribed her own relatives to trick her. Then, she turned to her mother and asked, "Am I really Jin-yeon's sister?" Looking at her mother's silence, Soo-young started blaming herself, crying about how she'd always been jealous of kids with fathers, but her mother never told her the truth. "Who is my father?" she demanded. She screamed that her mother was the reason she was in this mess. Finally, the mother couldn't take it anymore and spilled the real truth. Years ago, she actually did have a baby with Jin-yeon's father, but the child died right after birth. In her absolute grief, she wanted to end it all, until one night, a baby was abandoned right on her doorstep. She raised that child as her own, believing it was a gift. That baby was Soo-young. The secret was out. Soo-young wasn't a biological sister at all. She was an orphan who had been discarded like trash. Knowing they weren't blood-related meant she could go back to Il-hyun. She pushed her mother aside and ran. The toxic couple, who were just about to break up, were now back together. To make her feel better, Il-hyun suggested they go on a trip. As fate would have it, they ran into Hyung-min, Jin-yeon, and Hana. Jin-yeon tried to take her daughter and leave, but Soo-young suggested they all eat together, claiming Hana probably missed her dad. While the adults were busy ordering, Soo-young started her psychological warfare on the little girl. She told Hana that the uncle she called dad was only being nice to her, so he could marry her mom. She told the kid not to be fooled, but little Hana had her own thoughts. She looked Soo-young in the eye and said, "You're the liar, teacher. You used the excuse of tutoring me just to cling to my dad, and you pretended to be nice while lying to my mom and everyone else." Soo-young was stunned. How could a little kid be so evil? Hana just looked at her and said, "I learned it all from you, teacher." Honestly, this kid's aura is even stronger than her mom's. It left Soo-young speechless, but her words had still left a deep scar on the little girl's heart. When Hana saw that her father wouldn't stand up for her, she felt completely abandoned. She burst into tears and ran away. Seeing this, Il-hyun ignored Soo-young's attempts to stop him and chased after his daughter. Looking at the girl sobbing her heart out, Il-hyun felt a deep, painful guilt. As soon as they got home, he exploded at Soo-young. He couldn't understand how she could be so heartless as to take out the mistakes of adults on an innocent child. But Soo-young didn't care. She argued that Hana was going to find out sooner or later anyway. She claimed she was just saying the things that everyone else was too scared to say. Then, she took a low blow, mocking Il-hyun for being so obsessed with a daughter who wasn't even his biological flesh and blood. That touched a nerve. Il-hyun snapped back with a brutal truth. "You aren't your mother's biological daughter either." He told her it was just as ridiculous that her mother raised her like her own. He then asked her what happened to the sweet, innocent girl he used to know. How had she become such a bitter, unreasonable woman? It's a classic case of the honeymoon phase is officially over. And for those who do evil, karma was just around the corner. The very next day, Soo-young got a call from the police station. She rushed over there only to find out that the professor she had paid to get Il-hyun a job was actually a career fraudster who had just been arrested. Soo-young was paralyzed. She had lost every single penny. But she was still in denial, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the job was still secured. She clung to a tiny shred of hope and went to the university, but the staff informed her that Il-hyun's name was nowhere on the hiring list. Soo-young refused to give up, insisting there must be a mistake, until security finally kicked her out. Realizing the truth, she broke down in tears. Dazed and broken, she stumbled back home. When Il-hyun asked how the job hunt went, she stammered through an explanation, telling him the student she paid had gone to jail and taken their money without doing a thing. That's when it hit Il-hyun. They had been scammed. He felt a wave of dread and scrambled to find their savings book. One look at his face told the whole story. The balance was a big fat zero. He furiously interrogated Soo-young, asking how she could be so reckless with their money and why she would stoop so low. Even though he knew the money was gone forever, he couldn't accept it, barking at Soo-young to find a way to get it back. Then, ignoring her pathetic excuses, he walked out without looking back. With no job, no money, and nowhere to go, Il-hyun ended up at a roadside stall, drinking his sorrows away. It wasn't long before he was completely wasted, making a total fool of himself in public. Seeing the once prestigious professor reduced to this hot mess was honestly satisfying to watch. Meanwhile, Soo-young was panicking. She had blown their entire life savings, and with both of them unemployed, they wouldn't even be able to afford the basics. Just a few days ago, she had vowed never speak to her mother again, but now she dared to crawl back home. Facing the woman who had raised her for over 20 years, the first thing out of her mouth was a demand for money, specifically 200 million won. She even told her mother that if she didn't have it, she should go borrow it from her rich sister, Jang-soon. The mother couldn't believe the daughter she was once so proud of had become this disgusting. What they didn't know was that Jang-soon was listening outside the door. She burst in and asked why Soo-young needed so much cash, mockingly asking if she planned to treat her mother like a cash cow. The mother, ever the protector, only cared if Soo-young was in some kind of trouble. Soo-young lied, claiming she got scammed while trying to buy a position for Il-hyun and that they were planning to start a business. Jang-soon literally started clapping. She told Soo-young that losing everything she had stolen was the definition of karma. She told her to stop daydreaming because she wouldn't be getting a single cent, and then she kicked Soo-young out of the house. As it happened, That day was Jin-yeon's birthday. Hana, still hoping to play matchmaker and get her parents back together, called Il-hyun and told him to come out and celebrate. After picking up his daughter, the two of them went to a restaurant to wait for Jin-yeon to finish work. Right then, Soo-young called. Il-hyun told her to stop acting like a parole officer and quit monitoring his every move, saying he needed some personal space. He told her he had an appointment and would be home late. Hearing that, Soo-young's internal alarm went off. She knew he was lying. Soo-young cornered him on the phone, asking if he was running back to Jin-yeon again and planning to leave her all alone. On the other end, Il-hyun was so done with her constant nagging that he just hung up. He had no clue that Soo-young had actually installed a GPS tracker on his phone. One look at her eyes, and you knew she was ready to go on the warpath. Jin-yeon, completely unaware of her daughter's secret plan, had turned down Hyung-min's dinner invite just to celebrate her birthday with Hana. But when she arrived at the restaurant, she was shocked to see Il-hyun sitting there. The air turned awkward instantly. Hana explained that she was the one who begged her dad to come. Not wanting Il-hyun to ruin her mood, Jin-yeon told her daughter to finish eating with him and then head home, saying she had work to handle. But the little girl wouldn't budge, so Jin-yeon was forced to stay. Just as they were about to take a family photo, Soo-young, who had followed the GPS signal like a hawk, burst onto the scene. She marched right up and helped herself to a seat, completely shattering the happy atmosphere. Il-hyun told her to go home and stop causing a scene. Watching them bicker, Jin-yeon couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed Hana's hand and prepared to leave. But Soo-young wasn't letting her go that easily. She interrogated Jin-yeon, asking how she could be so shameless. She screamed that since they were divorced and Jin-yeon was the reason Il-hyun lost everything, why was she still clinging to him for her birthday? She claimed the only reason her relationship with Il-hyun was falling apart was that Jin-yeon kept meddling. Then, she turned her venom on Hana, telling the little girl that her father was only in this miserable state because of her mother. Right then, Hyung-min, who had come looking for Jin-yeon, arrived at the perfect moment. He held back his rage and told Soo-young to stop being so disgusting, asking why she was filling a child's head with such garbage. To protect Hana from the adult drama, Hyung-min tried to lead her away. But Soo-young's jealousy had completely spiraled out of control. There was no way she was letting them leave in peace. To keep her grip on Il-hyun, she dropped the ultimate truth bomb. She screamed out that Hana was actually Hyung-min's biological daughter. The poor girl was caught completely off guard and couldn't process it. Hana looked at her mother and Hyung-min, demanding to know why they had lied to her. She didn't want to believe a word Soo-young said. No matter how they tried to explain, Hana just burst into tears and ran out. Jin-yeon chased after her, trying to get her home, but Hana hit her with a heartbreaking plea. She said Il-hyun was living a miserable life right now and that she just wanted her parents to be back together. Facing her daughter's begging, Jin-yeon was left speechless. Back at home, Il-hyun started packing his bags, ready to leave Soo-young for good, but she wouldn't allow it. She actually pulled the ultimate manipulation card. She threatened to end her own life. She cried that she had lost everything just to be with him, and if he abandoned her, too, she had no reason to live. Facing this toxic performance, Il-hyun felt nothing but helplessness and anger, but he wasn't heartless enough to just walk out. The next day, Jin-yeon had barely reached the office when Eun-young cornered her. Knowing that Hyung-min and Jin-yeon were dating, Eun-young told her that she had always been by Hyung-min's side and wouldn't accept Jin-yeon stealing him away. She interrogated Jin-yeon, asking how a divorced woman could even dream of being with a man she loved so deeply. She basically ordered Jin-yeon to be the one to break it off. Meanwhile, Hyung-min was worried about how the night's events had affected Hana, so he sought her out. But Hana was a different person now. She coldly told Hyung-min to never come looking for her again. She said she didn't want him to be the reason her parents couldn't get back together. She acknowledged that Il-hyun and Soo-young had hurt her mom, but insisted that Il-hyun was still a good father. She told Hyung-min she hated him and asked, "If you're really my dad, where were you all those years when my mom needed you?" Hana was convinced he had abandoned them. Hyung-min tried desperately to explain that he had no idea Jin-yeon was pregnant and that his mother had forced him to go abroad. He told her that by the time he returned, Jin-yeon was already married, and he'd only found out the truth about her recently. He begged Hana for her forgiveness. Back in their toxic nest, Il-hyun was completely over Soo-young and was focused only on finding a job. Soo-young felt him growing cold toward her. Now that she wasn't her mother's precious daughter anymore and had even been scammed while trying to help him, she felt insecure. She demanded that Il-hyun spend more time with her and stop treating her like she was invisible. Il-hyun shot back, blaming her for throwing their money away without even asking him. He asked her how she could expect him to comfort her after a mess like that. It only took a few words for them to descend into another screaming match. Il-hyun was officially at his breaking point. He sat Soo-young down and tried to break up with her yet again, telling her that since all they did was scream and fight, he simply couldn't do this anymore. But Soo-young was convinced he only wanted to dump her so he could run back to Jin-yeon and the daughter he missed so much. She wasn't about to let that happen. Before he could even finish his sentence, she threw her arms around him. physically holding him back so he couldn't leave. One look at Soo-young's eyes, and you knew she was already plotting her next move. She scrambled over to Hyung-min's office and actually urged him to marry Jin-yeon as fast as possible. Her logic: if Jin-yeon were married off, Il-hyun would finally stop thinking about her. She even suggested that Hyung-min use his status as Hana's biological father to manipulate Jin-yeon into a commitment, claiming it would benefit everyone. Hyung-min didn't want to hear a word from this shameless woman, and he certainly wasn't going to use dirty tactics to force Jin-yeon into anything. He flat out refused to cooperate. From that moment on, Soo-young's paranoia reached an all-time high. She started monitoring Il-hyun so closely that he felt like he couldn't even breathe. In her twisted mind, she told herself she was only doing it because she loved him too much. To keep him tethered to her, she worked tirelessly to find him a job. She eventually found a position at a local hagwon, a private cram school, but Il-hyun's ego was still stuck in the clouds. He couldn't believe a prestigious professor like himself was being reduced to tutoring a bunch of bratty kids. Soo-young hit him with a reality check, telling him they were nearly out of money and that he should be grateful just to have a paycheck. Forced to face his new reality, Il-hyun showed up at the learning center the next day. But things went south immediately. The students started mocking him, asking how a university professor could fall so low that he was stuck teaching them. He felt like he had lost all face. The title of professor that he used to carry with so much pride was gone. Now, everyone just called him teacher. His pride was in absolute shambles. When he got home, Soo-young tried to play the doting partner to cheer him up, but Il-hyun exploded. He blamed her for everything: his ruined career, his lost house, and the fact that his daughter was about to call another man dad. He demanded a breakup for the 100th time. But Soo-young stood her ground, crying about how she had sacrificed her entire life and reputation for him since college because she loved him. Once he finished venting his rage, Il-hyun pulled out his suitcase and started packing his bags, determined to leave. But Soo-young wasn't having it. She broke down in tears, begging him not to abandon her and promising she'd be good and do whatever he said. Honestly, if a grown man really wanted to leave, a woman crying wouldn't be enough to stop him. It was clear Il-hyun was still too weak to actually walk away. The next day, Il-hyun did something truly pathetic. He sought out Jin-yeon. I guess he finally realized that wildflowers aren't nearly as sweet as the homegrown kind. He crawled back to her, begging for a second chance. He claimed everyone makes mistakes, and that he was drowning in regret for losing a wife as good as hers. Jin-yeon, who had long since buried any feelings she had for him, didn't even give him the time of day. She just looked at him with pure indifference and walked away without looking back. Of course, Soo-young had been stalking him and saw the whole thing. She was devastated to see the man she had humiliated herself to keep was now begging for his ex-wife's attention. She confronted him, asking if he was really planning to dump her. Il-hyun didn't even try to hide it anymore. He told her he felt like he was suffocating and that he was disgusted with their life together. He confessed that he desperately wanted his old, happy family of 3 back. Despite her begging, he lost his patience, shoved her hand away, and walked off, leaving her standing there alone. Soo-young had officially lost her mind, and there was no way she was letting go. Because of Jin-yeon's rejection, Il-hyun was in a terrible mood and spent the night drinking alone. He couldn't bring himself to go back to the house he shared with Soo-young. Meanwhile, Soo-young waited up for him all night, her paranoia and suspicion spiraling out of control. The next morning, she ambushed Jin-yeon again. The moment they met, she warned Jin-yeon to stay away from Il-hyun and told her not to even dream about remarrying him. Looking at this delusional woman, Jin-yeon could only laugh. She told Soo-young to relax and actually thanked her for taking that trash of a man out of her life. She said if it wasn't for Soo-young, she'd still be living a lie. Even though Jin-yeon made her position crystal clear, Soo-young continued to harass her. Right as they were scuffling, Il-hyun showed up. Smothered by Soo-young's obsession, he tried to crawl back to Jin-yeon again, but she didn't care about either of them. Il-hyun had officially given up on their relationship. Back at home, even though Soo-young was trying her best to please him, he turned on her instantly. He barked at her to stop bothering him and started unloading a mountain of blame, claiming his life would never have become this train wreck if it weren't for her. But Soo-young wasn't taking it lying down. She fired back, reminding him that he was the one who approached her first and seduced her. Now that he was bored, he just wanted to kick her to the curb. Il-hyun felt like he was losing his mind. Being treated like a criminal under surveillance every single day was making his life feel utterly meaningless. He couldn't stand being in the same room with her for another second, so he grabbed his jacket and stormed out. But things didn't get any better at work. At the tutoring center, the students started mocking him, bringing up the fact that he was a fired professor. Pushed to the edge by their provocations, Il-hyun lost his temper and hurled a book at a student. The book hit the kid right in the eye, causing an injury. The other students cornered him, shouting, "How can a teacher just hit someone like that? No wonder you got kicked out of the university." Il-hyun was seeing red and was about to swing again, but luckily, the principal arrived just in time to stop the brawl. Back at home, Soo-young got a call from a former colleague telling her that Il-hyun had assaulted a student and that the parents were already at the school demanding an apology and a massive settlement. When Il-hyun finally stumbled home in a rage, Soo-young didn't even get a chance to ask what happened before he started blaming her for making him take that humiliating tutoring job in the first place. Soo-young snapped back, asking if he'd rather just stay home and be a moocher. The gloves were off, and they started tearing each other apart. Il-hyun told her to her face that the biggest mistake of his life was meeting her. He shouted that if it wasn't for her, he'd be a university principal by now and still be married to Jin-yeon. Watching Il-hyun's total coldness, Soo-young pulled out a mysterious business card. One look at the sinister glint in her eyes, and you knew she was about to do something truly evil. Later that night, a wasted Il-hyun tracked down Jin-yeon and found her with Hyung-min. He flew into a jealous rage, charging at them and making a scene. He actually dared to interrogate Jin-yeon, asking how she could be seeing another man and disrespecting her husband. I mean, the nerve. This guy abandoned her for a student, divorced her, and now he's still calling himself the husband? Jin-yeon tried to ignore him, but suddenly, Il-hyun dropped to his knees. He started begging for her forgiveness, crying that he knew he'd messed up and was heartbroken over losing a wife as good as hers. Fed up with the drama, Jin-yeon had no choice but to call Soo-young to come and pick up her trash. The next morning, once he'd sobered up, Il-hyun's attitude towards Soo-young was just as cold as before. He told her to pack her bags and move out, saying that staying together was just making them both miserable. The man who once promised her the world had officially turned into her worst nightmare. Soo-young was convinced that Jin-yeon was the reason Il-hyun hated her now, so she lost all sense of reality. She stormed into Jin-yeon's office, demanding to know if Jin-yeon had agreed to take him back. Jin-yeon just wanted to roll her eyes at the sheer delusion. She told Soo-young to go home and manage her own man instead of constantly coming over to put on a show. She made it clear she didn't care about their lives at all. This whole scene was caught by Eun-young. After Jin-yeon left, Eun-young approached the fuming Soo-young and gave her a little tip. It only took one sentence to wake up the demon inside Soo-young. Using a fake identity, Soo-young immediately contacted the mysterious person on that business card to set a plan in motion. She met with them, finalized the deal, and prepared to strike. Back at home, she called Jin-yeon, pretending she had something very important to discuss. The second she hung up, she alerted her hitman to get ready. Jin-yeon, having no reason to suspect a murder plot, headed to the meeting spot alone, completely unaware that her life was in danger. Just as she was about to cross the street, a motorcycle sped toward her at high speed. Jin-yeon was so terrified that she was frozen in place like Hyung-min, who happened to be driving by, spotted the danger. He hit the gas and swung his car in front of her, using it as a shield to block the motorcycle. It was a miracle no one was killed. Hyung-min jumped out of the car to check on Jin-yeon. As Jin-yeon started to snap out of her shock, she quickly called Jaeyoung-soon to tell her she'd just been in an accident. Meanwhile, because the rider was injured and couldn't move fast, Hyung-min managed to pin him down. He interrogated the guy, asking why he was trying to flee and what he was hiding. He made it clear, if you don't start talking, I'm dragging you straight to the police station. During the struggle, a photo of Jin-yeon fell out of the rider's pocket. Hyung-min didn't miss a beat. He threatened the guy with an attempted murder charge if he didn't confess everything right then. Terrified of going to prison, the rider folded. He admitted he had been hired by a woman and even showed them a photo taken during their meeting. And of course, who else could it be but Soo-young? Jin-yeon was floored. She never imagined Soo-young would actually try to kill her. At that exact moment, Soo-young was at home, pacing back and forth, waiting for news. She was so anxious that she called the rider's phone. That one phone call was the final nail in the coffin, confirming she was the one who hired the hitman. Even Jaeyoung-soon couldn't believe her ears. She knew her sister was crazy, but she didn't think she was attempted murder crazy. The next day, Jaeyoung-soon marched to Soo-young's place and confronted her point-blank about hiring a killer. Il-hyun was standing right there, looking completely clueless and, believe it or not, still defending Soo-young. Jaeyoung-soon immediately assumed they were both in on it. Panicking, Soo-young didn't just kick Jaeyoung-soon out. She accused her own sister of slandering her without any proof. But Jaeyoung-soon hit her with the receipts. She told her the hitman had already confessed and that there was a photo of her handing over the job. Jaeyoung-soon gave her a brutal ultimatum. If you don't want to rot in a cell, you go and apologize to Jin-yeon right now. If you don't, I will be the one to turn you in. But Soo-young still tried to play the victim, crying about why everyone was on Jin-yeon's side while doubting her. Watching her sister remain completely unrepentant was driving Jaeyoung-soon insane. Worried about Jin-yeon's safety, Hyung-min set up a meeting with Il-hyun. Il-hyun was skeptical at first, but once he saw the hard evidence, he finally had to accept that Soo-young was a monster. The man who had still been holding out hope for Soo-young was now completely disgusted. He stormed home and interrogated her, asking how she could become something so terrifying and wicked. Soo-young still tried to deny it until Il-hyun told her he'd seen the evidence. Finally cornered, she admitted she only wanted to scare Jin-yeon so she would stop meeting him. Il-hyun was devastated. He looked at her and asked what happened to the woman he was once obsessed with. He lashed out, pointing out the pathetic irony. First, she got scammed out of all their savings, and then she used the tiny bit of money they had left to hire a hitman. Il-hyun didn't show her an ounce of mercy. He packed her bags, and no matter how much she begged or cried, he kicked her and her luggage out onto the street. With nowhere to go and still zero remorse, Soo-young ran to Jin-yeon's office to cause another scene. She screamed at Jin-yeon to stay away from Il-hyun, asking why a woman who was about to marry a rich CEO was still trying to steal her man. Il-hyun, who had come to apologize to Jin-yeon, caught her in the act. Even with him standing right there, Soo-young tried to lie her way out of it. But Jin-yeon wasn't playing. She told Soo-young she had all the evidence, and that if she didn't get lost immediately, she was going to prison. The final blow came when Soo-young realized even Il-hyun didn't believe a word she said anymore. That was the death punch to her ego. After wandering the streets for a few days, a broken Soo-young crawled back to her mother's shop and ended up collapsing from exhaustion. Her soft-hearted mother took her home. When Jang-soon found out Soo-young was in the house, she told her to leave as soon as she woke up, not wanting to hurt Jin-yeon any further. But this woman was born to be an actress. She put on a fake apology for Jang-soon, crying that she was momentarily confused and that she was truly sorry for everything she'd done. She promised she would apologize to Jin-yeon and begged her sister to let her stay for just a few days until she recovered. The mother backed her up, and Jang-soon eventually yielded. But as the saying goes, a snake never changes its skin. The second she promised to be good, she forgot all about it. She accidentally met Jin-yeon outside and started bragging that now that she'd moved back in, they'd be living under the same roof again. After that, Soo-young made it clear she was going to be watching Jin-yeon's every move, warning her not to even think about sneaking around with Il-hyun. On the very first night, she was already back to her old, dirty tricks. In the middle of the night, Soo-young crept into Jin-yeon's room to steal her phone. She was desperate to see if Il-hyun was still in contact with her. As fate would have it, Il-hyun called at that exact moment. Soo-young was livid. She had been gone for days, and he hadn't even looked for her. Yet here he was, calling his ex-wife every single day. With a mind this twisted, you just knew Soo-young was about to cause some major trouble. For the next few days, Soo-young performed, acting like a total angel. But Jang-soon and the rest of the family weren't buying it. As they say, a fox can try to hide its tail, but it'll never truly look innocent. One day, Jin-yeon returned from a business trip, and since she had a mountain of luggage, she called Jang-soon for a ride. It just so happened that Young-mi was busy and couldn't go. Soo-young saw her opening and volunteered to help. Jang-soon was nervous about letting Soo-young go, but her mother thought it was a perfect chance for Jin-yeon to start seeing Soo-young in a better light. So, Soo-young got her wish. She drove to the meeting spot, but when she got there, she saw Il-hyun. Not only was he there looking for Jin-yeon, but the two of them were in the middle of a heated scuffle. Seeing them together made Soo-young lose all sense of reality. Forgetting she was already in deep trouble, she slammed her foot on the gas and drove straight at them. At the very last second, a shred of sanity hit her, and she slammed on the brakes. Miraculously, no one was hit. Il-hyun rushed to help Jin-yeon up, only to see a very familiar face behind the wheel. Caught red-handed, Soo-young panicked and sped away. Back at the house, looking at a bruised and shaken Jin-yeon, Soo-young shamelessly lied to everyone, claiming she simply couldn't get a hold of Jin-yeon and decided to come home early. She even had the nerve to fake concern for Jin-yeon's injuries. Not wanting to tear the family apart with more drama, Jin-yeon chose not to expose Soo-young's homicidal behavior. Meanwhile, Il-hyun was eaten up with guilt over seeing Jin-yeon hurt. He felt like he had to do something. He called Soo-young for a meeting, and in her total delusion, she actually thought he was coming back to her. She never expected that what was waiting for her was a cold-blooded warning. Il-hyun told her to stop her wicked behavior, or the next time they met, they'd be enemies. With that, he walked away without looking back. Soo-young completely lost her cool and, as usual, blamed everything on Jin-yeon. She went home and, in a fit of rage, threw all of Jin-yeon and Hana's clothes and toys into the water. Just then, she heard Hana's voice. One look at Soo-young's eyes, and you knew another scheme was brewing. She suddenly transformed, her face blooming like a flower, looking nothing like the maniac she was a second ago. She started sweet-talking Hana, but the girl was still on guard and tried to ignore her. Soo-young then played the victim, lying that she had already apologized to Jin-yeon and that they were now best friends who had settled all their drama. Hana is just a little kid who can't tell fact from fiction yet, so it only took a few words for Soo-young to trick her. Triumphantly, Soo-young took Hana to Il-hyun's place. The moment they arrived, she started fantasizing out loud about how they were finally a happy family of three. She even told Hana that since her mom was about to marry Uncle Hyung-min, she wouldn't want Hana anymore, so Hana should just live here with her and her dad. Il-hyun saw right through it. He realized Soo-young had officially gone insane. To keep her from harming his daughter, he warned her to stay far away from Hana and literally kicked Soo-young out of the house. Back at Jang-soon's place, everyone returned home to find Hana's toys and clothes soaking in the bathtub. You didn't even have to guess who did something that disgusting. Jae-young and her daughter immediately demanded that Soo-young move out for good, fearing what she might do next. That's when they noticed Hana's backpack lying on the floor. They searched the entire house, but the girl was nowhere to be found. A wave of dread hit them. They knew Soo-young had taken her. They tried to call Jin-yeon immediately, but they couldn't get through. At the same time, Il-hyun was taking Hana to find Jin-yeon, but he spotted her with Hyung-min. His toxic jealousy flared up instantly. To keep his daughter away from Hyung-min, he lied to Hana, promising to take her for her favorite pasta and telling her they'd just have her mom find them there later. After that, Il-hyun took his daughter to the beach. Driven by his own selfishness, he lied to Hana, telling her he had already cleared the trip with her mother and that they could just relax and play all day. But in reality, back home, Jin-yeon was practically losing her mind because her daughter was missing. Feeling completely helpless, the family even went to the police station to report her as a missing person. While Hana was happily playing in the sand, Il-hyun started his psychological games. He actually told the little girl to go beg Jin-yeon to take him back, claiming that if she did, their family of 3 could live just like they used to. Il-hyun knew he had messed up big time, so he was hoping his daughter could be his ticket to forgiveness and help him win Jin-yeon back. But Hana, though young, isn't exactly clueless. She looked at Il-hyun and told him that because he and Soo-young had hurt her mom so much, her mom was still furious with them. She pointed out that since her mom was now with Uncle Hyung-min, getting her parents back together was basically impossible. Il-hyun was devastated, but what his daughter said next pushed him into total despair. She told him she had heard that Hyung-min was actually her biological father, and she felt like her mom was definitely going to marry him. Hearing this, Il-hyun completely lost his cool. He begged Hana not to forget him, insisting that even though he wasn't her real father, he loved her more than Hyung-min ever could. To sabotage the bond between Hana and her biological dad, Il-hyun fed her more lies, claiming that Hyung-min had abandoned both her and her mother years ago. He told her to just forget about her real father, because in his mind, he was the only dad she would ever have. Seeing Il-hyun so heartbroken and desperate, Hana could only try to comfort him, telling him she still loved him the most. Meanwhile, Jin-yeon spent the entire night without a wink of sleep, agonizing over any news of Hana. Finally, she managed to get a hold of Il-hyun. The ringing phone woke up a sleeping Hana, and only then did the girl realize her mom had been searching for her this whole time. When Jin-yeon finally found them, Hana actually tried to shield Il-hyun, begging her mom not to scold him and even trying to drag Il-hyun back home with them. Frustrated that her daughter didn't understand the gravity of the situation, Jin-yeon snapped and yelled at her. In a fit of anger, Hana ran away, and Hyung-min immediately chased after her. Then, Il-hyun had the absolute audacity to ask Jin-yeon for custody. He knew he couldn't break up Jin-yeon and Hyung-min, but he couldn't bear the thought of being away from the girl. Jin-yeon ripped into him, calling him shameless and asking what right he had to claim Hana as his daughter after everything he'd done. She made it clear, since the divorce, Hana had zero connection to him. When Jin-yeon ran into Soo-young later, she didn't hold back. Since she was no longer at Jae-young's house, she didn't feel the need to be polite. She furiously interrogated Soo-young about why she took Hana to Il-hyun in the first place. Soo-young, being as delusional as ever, didn't think she did anything wrong. She argued that Il-hyun was the father and that he just wanted them to live together. Knowing Jin-yeon was getting married, Soo-young acted like Jin-yeon was being ungrateful by scolding her. Jin-yeon absolutely let her have it, and the screaming match drew in Jae-young. Jae-young told her sister to her face that she must be brain dead to pull such a ridiculous stunt. Soo-young, completely unrepentant, barked back at her sister, asking what she had done wrong. This sent Jae-young into a total rage. She attacked Soo-young and kicked her out of the house for good. With nowhere else to go, Soo-young crawled back to Il-hyun, wanting to move back in. But Il-hyun flat out rejected her. Jin-yeon was worried that Hana's harsh words about her biological father might have hurt Hyung-min, so she tried to comfort him. But Hyung-min was incredibly understanding. He said he totally got it because Hana had lived with Il-hyun for so long and had been genuinely loved by him. He actually felt grateful to Il-hyun for taking care of Hana all those years. He then proposed to Jin-yeon again, hoping they could marry soon and give Hana a stable, loving home to grow up in. He begged her for a chance to finally be a good father. As for Il-hyun, facing Soo-young's constant stalking, he decided he needed to end this toxic cycle once and for all. By a stroke of luck, he finally got a chance to leave all the drama behind. A university in a remote area invited him to work there. Even though the school admitted they had heard the rumors, they decided to hire him as a lecturer based strictly on his professional skills. Il-hyun knew deep down that this was his one and only shot to hit the reset button on his life, so he accepted the job offer without a single second of hesitation. Before heading out, he went to see her one last time. When Hana heard that her dad was going to be a professor again, she was absolutely over the moon for him. Because the distance was quite far and it would be much harder for them to see each other, Il-hyun gave his daughter some final advice. He told her that if her mom and her biological father ended up getting married, she should try her best to live happily with them, because they truly loved her too. But he also made it a point to tell her, even if you have a biological dad now, please don't ever forget this father, because I love you more than anything. After all, they had spent so many years living as father and daughter. A bond like that isn't something you can just throw away. Seeing how obedient and understanding Han-ah was being, Il-hyun was hit with a wave of pure, crushing regret. The next day, a desperate Soo-young showed up again, refusing to let go. This time, Il-hyun didn't kick her out. Soo-young begged him not to abandon her, crying that she had completely burned bridges with her family and had no home left to go to. Il-hyun told her that he was moving to a university far away for work. Hearing this, Soo-young was actually thrilled. She convinced herself that this meant they could finally start over together. But Il-hyun shut her down hard. He told her plainly that they had broken up a long time ago and that it was time for both of them to start their own separate lives. Soo-young tried to cling to him, but Il-hyun remained firm, telling her flat out, if she wanted to stay in the apartment, she could, but if not, she should just leave. Seeing the man she had been so intimate with act so decisive and cold made her mind spiral into dark places. She was convinced that Il-hyun was only rejecting her because of Jin-yeon, that he wanted to dump her just so he could crawl back to his ex-wife. Soo-young simply could not accept that. The day for Il-hyun to leave finally arrived. He told Soo-young that the lease for the apartment had been officially transferred to her name. Soo-young suggested that she see him off as one last goodbye gift. Il-hyun hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed. He told her he had a few things to wrap up first, and asked her to meet him downstairs in a bit. Soo-young didn't say anything out loud, but the look in her eyes suggested there was no way she was just letting him walk away. Sure enough, she used that GPS tracker on his phone again to see where he was going. When she realized that the very last thing he wanted to do was meet Jin-yeon, she started to lose her mind all over again. Il-hyun, completely oblivious, was busy saying his final farewell to Jin-yeon. He told her about the new job far away and said they probably wouldn't see each other ever again. He poured his heart out, saying how much he deeply regretted the hurt he had caused her and that he truly hoped she could find it in her heart to forgive him. Just as they were parting ways, Soo-young showed up and caught them. This woman just couldn't help herself and started causing a massive, ugly scene. Jin-yeon, who was totally done with this crazy woman, brushed her off and walked away. Right at that exact second, a car came speeding toward them out of nowhere. Jin-yeon was completely unaware of the danger heading straight for her. In that life or death moment, Il-hyun didn't hesitate for a split second. He lunged forward and shoved Jin-yeon out of the way, taking the full, brutal impact of the car himself. He was severely injured and rushed into emergency surgery immediately. Although the operation was a success, the trauma to his head was so bad that he remained in a deep coma. Soo-young, who had also been caught in the chaos of the accident, woke up screaming and ran to find Il-hyun. The moment she laid eyes on Jin-yeon, she started shrieking and blaming her for everything. She screamed that it was all Jin-yeon's fault that Il-hyun was in this state, and that she was the reason everyone was suffering. After her outburst, Soo-young even tried to lunge at Jin-yeon to hit her. Facing Soo-young's venomous accusations, Jin-yeon, who already blamed herself for the disaster, was consumed by an overwhelming sense of guilt. To ease her conscience, she stayed at the hospital and cared for Il-hyun day and night. Seeing the man who had hurt her so deeply risk his own life just to save hers made the guilt even harder to bear. She couldn't stop thinking that if she hadn't just turned her back and walked away yesterday, the outcome might have been different. To keep her daughter from being devastated, Jin-yeon kept the whole thing a secret from everyone. But the sensitive Han-ah eventually figured it out anyway. When she realized her dad was fighting for his life, she broke down in tears. She tracked down Hyung-min and begged him to take her to the hospital so she could finally visit her father. It seems that deep down in this man's heart, he truly did love this girl, even if she wasn't his biological daughter. The sound of Han-ah's voice was enough to pull Il-hyun back from the brink, and he finally woke up. Jin-yeon was in total disbelief. She quickly scrambled to call for the doctors and nurses. After checking him over, the doctors were stunned. For someone with injuries that severe, to wake up in such a short time was nothing short of a medical miracle. And once Il-hyun was awake, the only person he was truly worried about was Jin-yeon. I guess it takes a life and death situation for someone to finally realize what they actually need. But seeing this was a total knife to the heart for Hyung-min. They looked like a real family again. Completely crushed, he could only walk away in silence. The next day, Jin-yeon sought out Hyung-min and actually asked to break up. Since Il-hyun had put his life on the line to save her and was likely to face permanent health complications, she knew he'd need constant care. She didn't want to hold Hyung-min back or ruin his life because of her situation. But Hyung-min told her he would wait for her forever. They had already lost each other once, and he wasn't about to let go this time. Hearing his answer only made Jin-yeon feel more guilty. As much as it hurt, she walked away with a broken heart. Meanwhile, as soon as Soo-young heard that Il-hyun had woken up, she went right back to her delusions. She started telling everyone that as soon as he recovered, they were finally getting married. Facing this level of obsession, her mother tried everything to talk sense into her, but at this point, Soo-young had completely lost it. Honestly, she looked so unhinged that even a demon would be terrified of her. As for Il-hyun, he spent every single day in the hospital with his daughter by his side. This was probably the happiest time he'd had since the divorce. But only he truly knew the reality of his failing health. He reached out to Hyung-min, hoping he could convince Jin-yeon to leave the hospital. He felt that since he was the person who hurt her the most, he didn't deserve for her to stay and care for him. Il-hyun even begged Hyung-min to treat Jin-yeon well from now on and to raise Hana together as she grew up. In this moment, he seemed truly, deeply sincere. That day, while Jin-yeon was looking after him like usual, she suddenly noticed something was terribly wrong. In a total panic, she ran to find help. But even though the doctors did absolutely everything they could, Il-hyun passed away due to complications. I guess this is the ending most people were hoping for. Good things happen to good people, but karma always catches up to the wicked. The universe doesn't let anyone get away with doing evil forever. And that's the end of our story. Thank you so much to everyone for your support. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can see even more great movie recaps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.